Chapter 630. Comprehensive Combat Power Test. In other words, it was an actual combat test. Attack, defense, and even talent were all the same. The strength of a martial artist depended on combat power after all. Maybe some martial artists were very talented, and some had outstanding attack power, but in a real combat, in a test of life and death, they were useless. What was the use of such a martial artist? As a martial artist, he had to face challenges and death calmly. Here it comes. Lin Feng stepped forward. In the darkness ahead, there was also a pair of eagle-like eyes. Staring at him, they were full of sparkling luster, and a red light enlarged in an instant. Hua! Lin Feng's head shook. The scene in front of him suddenly changed, and a thick, murderous aura surged crazily. He seemed to be in an endless hell, and the blood-red cold light filled every corner. The boiling, murderous aura attacked him, as if it wanted to arouse the deepest killing intent in people's hearts, like igniting a flame. But break! Lin Feng's eyes were shining. Almost in an instant, everything in front of him shattered like an illusion. In an instant, everything returned to silence, and he entered the darkness again. The illusion shattered. He stepped forward calmly, and the sharp eyes in front of him had disappeared. Lin Feng was not surprised. Since it was the final test, it would not be easy. The illusion just now was probably just the prelude, and the real main course was yet to come. One step. Lin Feng was extremely cautious. At this moment, his senses became extremely sensitive. A single slip could lead to everlasting sorrow. He had spent a total of 300 days tempering himself as an ancient martial art practitioner. How could he fall here after fighting for so long? Dong, dong, dong. Like the sound of an earthquake, a giant seemed to appear in the darkness. Lin Feng's eyes were bright, and his figure was like lightning, speeding out. The giant in front of him was filled with a heavy aura like Mount Tai. Pulling out the nightmare demon spear, Lin Feng did not stop at all, and his star power suddenly burst out. Eighth gear. Red starlight shone. Lin Feng's left hand shone. Although he did not use his acupuncture points, the current Lin Feng was not the same as before. Star C level 9 strength. Advanced man spear unity proficient level. This spear attack far surpassed the one he had used against Wan Gugu. Swish! Like the resplendent stars. Only a flash of light could be seen. It was as if a layer of darkness had been cut open. Lin Feng's attack erupted with astonishing power, as if thousands of flowers were blooming. Wherever the light went, everything was destroyed. Its unparalleled speed allowed it to unleash its power to the maximum. Bang! In the darkness, the giant exploded. Lin Feng's eyes glowed faintly. His body did not stop, but continued to stride forward. He had passed 2 stages in a row. A beam of light seemed to appear in front of him. This caused a glimmer of hope to appear in this originally dark place. Holding the nightmare spear in his hand, Lin Feng's emotions did not change at all. Countless battles had told him, stay true to your heart. You must not be influenced by the outside world. In an instant, a loud rumble resounded. In the distance, there was a feast of light. In an instant, violent flames appeared and gathered from all directions. They attacked indiscriminately, making it impossible for anyone to dodge. In this small and narrow space, even if one wanted to, they were powerless. Whoosh! Lin Feng's eyes were extremely bright. 8th gear star power instantly erupted, forming a thick layer of red light around his body. Behind him, the shadow of a Swanee appeared. It was demonic and ferocious, carrying with it a sparkling flame. Lin Feng's body seemed to be burning. Shield of the Flame Dragon. Lin Feng shouted. A craggy giant shield formed around his body, rumbling loudly. The moment the giant shield appeared, it came into contact with the boundless flames, producing a clanging sound. Lin Feng's control was perfect, and the timing was perfect. The flames on the giant shield were boiling, constantly counteracting the dense flames. The 2 forces did not give in at all. It seemed to be a test of defense. But something's wrong. Lin Feng's expression suddenly changed. A fierce light flashed in his eyes. He suddenly shouted, "Flame Dragon!" In front of the shield of the Flame Dragon, a Flame Dragon suddenly rushed out, breaking through the light shadow. He switched from defense to offense in an instant. Bang! There was a loud, explosive sound. The noisy environment suddenly became much lighter. The incomparably bright light also slowly disappeared, returning to calmness. The third stage passed. His expression was calm, as if he had just done something insignificant. Again and again. If I don't hurry up, my star power will be exhausted, and this trial will be troublesome. Lin Feng took a deep breath, and his heart sank. If he had been resisting the flames just now, he would have consumed a lot of energy at this moment. But this would be the biggest failure. That was because what it tested was probably not his defensive ability. He had already passed the third test of defense. There would not be a second trial at all. This was obviously a misdirection. It's really cunning, Lin Feng muttered to himself. He almost fell into a trap. His figure galloped. Lin Feng was not afraid of any danger at this time. Compared to the outcome of failing the trial, why should he care about anything else? Right now, he had to hurry up. He flew up quickly. The facts proved that Lin Feng's guess was correct. Once he wasted time and energy, it would be difficult for him to pass the last test. In addition to strength, I'm afraid that the last test also tests wisdom and judgment. It's indeed a comprehensive combat strength test. Lin Feng was shocked. He understood deeply. The light in front of him was getting brighter and brighter. He felt as if he was slowly breaking through the clouds in a dark cave. But how could it be so easy? Huh. The light bloomed. Lin Feng's eyes were bright. He seemed to have left a certain place, a certain space, and entered an incomparably wonderful area. Stepping into the void, there was nothing around except for simple lines. Everything seemed to be nothingness, falling into chaos. In front of him, there were two different figures standing indifferently. That appearance, they should be the gatekeepers. As I expected, they are the final test. Lin Feng's eyes were shining, and his fighting spirit was boiling. The two figures had two different auras. One was strong and full of power, while the other was lean and had bright eyes. Déjà vu. Weren't they the two statues he saw when he entered the second test and was faced with a choice? Although their appearances were different, their auras were similar. It felt exactly the same. Now they were his enemies. Fight! The nightmare spear vibrated. Lin Feng did not hesitate. He had no advantage in a 1 versus 2 battle. He had to strike first to gain the upper hand. Just as Lin Feng's fighting spirit was soaring, the two figures of light attacked at the same time. The ancient warrior figure of light rushed forward, while the ancient god figure of light retreated. One in front and one behind, they cooperated very skillfully. Obviously, the two figures of light were not stupid. They knew how to use their advantage. The best combination. The ancient god figure of light instantly erupted with flames. The ancient god figure of light in front also had a spear. The spear was like lightning, containing deep flames. Both of them were extremely strong. No matter which one it was, they were stronger than the 10,000 dried bones from before. However, the current Lin Feng was no longer an ignorant person. How could 300 days of cultivation be in vain? Flame Dragon Shield. Lin Feng's eyes shone. The moment his figure crossed with the ancient god figure of light, Lin Feng did not attack. Instead, he defended. The condensed flames seemed to block the ancient god figure of light's power. However, in an instant, the whirlpool under Lin Feng's right foot shone brightly. Whoosh! Whoosh! His figure changed rapidly. Lin Feng used the power of the whirlpool to dodge the ancient god figure of light's spear. However, the ancient god figure of light's reaction was extremely fast. The spear exploded violently without any pause. At this moment, the ancient god figure of light's fireballs were like meteorites in the sky, condensing densely in the sky. Lin Feng instantly felt as if he was facing a great enemy. However, he did not panic at all. Lin Feng's expression was natural, as if everything was according to his heart. Bang! The nightmare demon's spear and the ancient god figure of Light's spear suddenly bloomed. The powerful force caused Lin Feng and the ancient god figure of Light to retreat rapidly. At this moment, the remaining power blasted onto the flame dragon shield. Not only did it not cause any damage to the flame dragon shield, it even triggered the flame dragon's backlash. Go! Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. A flame dragon flew forward at an extremely fast speed. The dense flame power blasted towards the retreating ancient god figure of Light. At this moment, Lin Feng's right foot flashed again, and the whirlpool instantly changed twice in succession. Lin Feng's retreating figure was still speeding forward, and his speed did not decrease at all. However, the direction of his body changed from the back to the front, and he attacked the ancient god figure of Light with the momentum of breaking through the air. In a short move, Lin Feng broke through the joint attack of the two figures of Light. Not only that, but he also created an excellent opportunity. The nightmare demon's spear in his hand resonated loudly, and his fighting spirit boiled. At this moment, not only did the ancient god figure of Light not stop, it also had to face the flame dragon's attack. At this moment, the ancient god figure of Light had no helpers. One-on-one. In terms of speed, Lin Feng was far superior. Boom! Boom! The meteorites in the sky exploded crazily, and they blasted towards Lin Feng at high speed. However, it was too late to use it now. Lin Feng was best at explosive speed and explosive power. Whirlpool. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. Thousands of small holes shone, giving the whirlpool the strongest driving force. Astral power condensed on his legs, and black fog spread out around his body. Lin Feng's speed instantly bloomed. Throat chakra, human acupoint. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. His left hand shone brightly. Lin Feng's acupoints exploded, and he used his strongest move. Now was the best opportunity. He had to seize it. Light Shadow Spear Art. The nightmare demon spear in his hand turned into a bright light, and it shot towards the ancient god figure of Light. The latter's eyes shone with a fierce light. The attack power of a heavenly soul master was at the brink of death, and it longed to create a miracle and counterattack. However, it was facing Lin Feng. Boom! Lin Feng's fate spirit had fused with the destined astrolabe. How could an ordinary soul attack shake it? Instead, it caused the ancient godlike figure's body to tremble violently. By the time it regained its senses, it was already too late. Die! Lin Feng shouted. The nightmare demon's spear struck the ancient god figure of Light at the speed of light. Bang! Chapter 631. The ancient godlike figure died in an instant. Lin Feng either didn't make a move, or once he made a move, it would be like a thunderbolt. There's one left. Lin Feng smiled indifferently. He was in an extremely good mood. One-on-one and one-on-two were two completely different things. With his combat experience and strength, how could he lose to a light figure without any intelligence? The most difficult part of this comprehensive combat strength test was over. All that was left was a battle without any suspense. There was no difficulty at all. Boom! There was an explosion of power. Lin Feng's eyes flashed as he stood there calmly. The glowing figure of the ancient martial artist exploded into pieces, thoroughly dead. Without the help of the ancient godlike figure, compared to Lin Feng, the ancient warrior light figure was too inferior in terms of strength and combat experience. In an instant, whoosh, everything around him changed. Lin Feng's eyes flashed with a faint luster. The nightmare demon spear hummed softly as it entered his heart. Ding! A crisp sound rang in his mind. Congratulations, trial taker. You have passed all 5 ancient warrior tempering tests. You have received 1,000,000 points. Please choose your reward. The voice sounded slowly. Lin Feng's eyes lit up slightly, and a smile appeared on his face. Other than 1,000,000 points, there was actually a reward. The Purple Star Realm was indeed extraordinary. Whoosh! Light flashed in front of him. Lin Feng entered a magical area. Looking at everything around him, Lin Feng couldn't help but take a light breath. He was incomparably shocked. This place was like a huge treasure trove. Mental cultivation techniques, secret manuals, numinous treasures, soul artifacts, wealth, immortal fruits, and so on. In this huge treasure trove, there was everything. The value was immeasurable. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly as he looked around. He looked here and there for a while, but his eyes were dazzled. After all, every item here was too precious. It was extremely valuable. The second test, choose. Lin Feng smiled bitterly. I think I finally understand what it means. Shaking his head, Lin Feng felt a smile on his face. The checkpoint began with a choice and ended with a choice. Although there were many treasures here, it was obvious that he could only choose one of them. It was quite a headache. What Lin Feng did not know was that flowers had already exploded outside the Gooseling Imperial residence at this time. In front of the scoreboard, all the cultivators widened their eyes, looking at Lin Feng, who suddenly ranked first, their hearts trembling. A new force had emerged. Originally, Ru Ming and Zhu Ling were fighting for first place. However, in an instant, the first place changed hands and was firmly occupied by Lin Feng. Moreover, his points were ridiculously high. 169,5569. More than 500,000 points ahead of Ru Ming, who was in second place. Are you kidding? Am I blind? Nearly 7 million? Oh my God! Is this Lin Feng a human or a ghost? Everyone was discussing animatedly, and they were flabbergasted. These 7 million points were enough to lock in the final champion in many tournaments. It was too terrifying. Amazing. Lin Feng is really proud, Ji Xia said in admiration. Ha ha ha, nearly 7 million. Brother Lin is really amazing, but he also gave a thumbs up. Their injuries were almost healed, but they did not leave. Instead, they waited patiently with the people from Fierce Yin sect. The great elder also nodded, his eyes shining. In the past 100 years, the best score of our Fierce Yin sect disciples was only 78 million. This time, the record that has been covered in dust for decades will be broken by Lin Feng. After a pause, the great elder revealed a kind smile. But I am most happy that Lin Feng is still alive. Ji Xia and Bai Yi also nodded, their eyes shining. There was a period of time when Lin Feng's points did not move at all. They thought that Lin Feng was dead and were extremely worried. Now, their worries were gone. I don't lack various types of cultivation methods. Even if I can get more precious ones, they're only slightly better than those from Fierce Yin's sect. As for numinous treasures, soul weapons, and soul weapons, they are all external objects. At present, they are of little help to my strength. Quality was more important than quantity when it came to assisting in battle. Lin Feng nodded slowly, his eyes shining. He already had the 7-star numinous treasure, Moon Glass, which he could control and defend. After killing Wan Liugu, he had also obtained an 8-star domain numinous treasure. 2 numinous treasures were enough for him to use. He might not be able to use more. Or rather, relying too much on numinous treasures was not a good thing. A martial artist's strength was truly built on his own strength. Don't rely too much on external objects. Believe in your own strength. It is the most useful at any time. Lin Feng remembered his master's teachings in his mind. His gaze swept across the various rare treasures in the hall. Lin Feng's eyes were bright, and he was deep in thought. Or various manuals that record secret techniques, or immortal fruits that can increase strength. For the current me, they should be the most useful. Lin Feng was slightly hesitant. It was hard for him to choose. What he needed to choose now was the most suitable for him and could increase his strength in a short time, not the most valuable ones. How about immortal fruits? Lin Feng thought to himself. Compared to his need for secret techniques, his need for increasing his strength was greater. Just as he was about to choose a type of immortal fruit, Lin Feng suddenly glanced and saw a bright crystal flashing beside an extremely refined starstone. It was extremely bright and shiny, but it was covered by the light source. He had missed it for a moment. Lin Feng was slightly moved. Lin Feng shifted his body and landed beside the crystal, reading its introduction with his eyes. "Second grade star crystal," Lin Feng muttered. His eyes lit up, and a faint smile appeared on his face. Perhaps this crystal was bright and beautiful, but it was almost useless to his battle strength. However, it was the most suitable for him at present. It was more suitable than immortal fruits. Star crystals are similar to star stones. They can be absorbed and directly increase a warrior's strength. However, star stones are mainly used to increase the strength of the body, and star power is secondary. Star crystals are the opposite. Absorbing them can greatly increase one's original star power. They are extremely precious to StarCraft-grade warriors. However, I have never found any star crystals in Yanling Mansion. Lin Feng recalled what his master had said that day. He recognized this beautiful crystal and knew how to use it. Starstones were rare in Yanling Mansion, but there were still many of them. However, star crystals were not produced in Yanling Mansion. The rarer something was, the more valuable it was. "This is it." Lin Feng reached out and picked up the crystal. From 1st grade to 9th grade, 2nd grade star crystals were only less valuable than 1st grade star crystals. They were extremely expensive. This was the reward for the 2nd stage of the Purple Star Realm. Whoosh! The scene in front of him suddenly changed. The pitch-black color had already disappeared, and the enormous crystal palace no longer existed. In front of him was a long passage. It was plain and simple. It looked no different from an ordinary path, but it seemed to be the final path to the end. I have successfully completed the 2nd stage. What will the 3rd stage be like? Walking in the passage, Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. He was curious and expectant. Without a doubt, the 3rd stage was definitely the most difficult and dangerous. However, once he passed it, the help he would receive, it would also be the greatest. You get what you put in. After going through the 2nd stage, my strength is no longer comparable to the past. As I expected, the 2nd stage should exist for the 3rd stage. Every trial requires a basic value. It is obvious that this is a line, a mark. It means that I can only enter the 3rd stage if I completely meet the requirements. No, I should say that I am qualified to enter the 3rd stage. Lin Feng's expression turned serious. During this period of time, he had already understood in his heart. The Purple Star Realm was connected to one another. The pattern was very obvious. It existed for the sake of training and improvement. It was not a hopeless situation. The 4th heaven. Interesting. Very interesting. Wan Gu's eyes were cold as the corners of his lips curled up. Zhu Ling is indeed Zhu Ling. Like teacher, like disciple. Teacher is right. This guy is not strong, but he is as cunning as a fox. Wan Gu's expression was cold with a hint of killing intent. Hide then. Let's see how long you can hide and endure. If it wasn't for that idiot Wan Kugu, you wouldn't have the chance to hide. If it was me, the first person I killed in the 4th heaven, it would be you. Wan Gu's eyes were filled with killing intent as his aura was majestic. He had absolute confidence that he could kill Zhu Ling in a cloud realm. Teacher was right. The Goose Feather Mansion is indeed very dangerous this time. These black-clothed men are ruthless and well-trained. There is a clear gradient. It is more than 70%, no, 80%. It must be the Goose Feather 10,000 tribe. Teacher should have received my message. I wonder how Fierce Goose Sect is doing now. Zhu Ling sat cross-legged as he cultivated. His expression was calm, but his brows were slightly furrowed. Beside him, the members of the first group, including Ji Xiu, Lei Ba, Ji Qing, and the others, were all gathered. The more dangerous it was, the more they had to be united. The more people there were, the more strength there was. You have a good plan, but I have a wall ladder. Wan Gu, don't think that I don't know. Other than you, only Ru Meng can defeat me. But Ru Meng is a girl. The corner of Zhu Ling's mouth lifted slightly. Perhaps he was not the strongest. However, in terms of intelligence and adaptability, he was definitely not inferior to Wan Gu. Whether it was outside or inside the Goose Feather Mansion, the Goose Feather 10,000 tribe and Fierce Goose Sect had already launched an open and covert battle. No one knew who would have the last laugh. At that moment, Lin Feng walked slowly for a full 15 minutes. The path in front of him gradually became wider and brighter. In the long path, he could vaguely feel traces of spiritual energy seeping in, giving him an extremely refreshing feeling. Seems like I'm here. I walked out of the Black Lake. This should be the place of the third checkpoint. Lin Feng's eyes flickered, and there was a hint of excitement in his heart. He had finally entered the core area of the Purple Star Realm. A wall of light appeared in front of him. Lin Feng looked straight ahead. The bright color was as dazzling as the morning sun, but it gave people a sense of new life and hope. Lin Feng let out a long sigh. Soon after, he took a step forward and walked out of this long path. His figure disappeared within it. Whoosh! I wish everyone a happy Mid-Autumn festival. Brothers and sisters outside, don't forget to call your parents. Carrot, carrot. Chapter 632. What rich spirit chi? What is this place? Standing on the ground, Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat, and his eyes were sparkling. This was a place with spirit chi that he had never seen before. It was extremely dense, and the dense energy in the air made him feel a strong force just by standing there. The origin energy was like happy little spirits jumping in the air. His body was immersed in nature, and he felt like he was soaking in water. All kinds of thoughts flashed through his mind. What would it be like if I could cultivate here? Lin Feng's eyes flickered. This kind of cultivation environment could be said to be something that could only be encountered by chance, but it was extremely tempting. However, he was still in the state of training. His life and death were unknown, so it was useless to think too much. Yes, there's still no sound. Obviously, I haven't triggered the third stage yet. Lin Feng nodded and thought to himself. Just like the second stage, only by finding the lake cave and entering it would he trigger the content of the training stage. It was probably the same for the third stage. I should have left the Black Lake by now. The lake cave looks ordinary, but it's not simple at all. Compared to the path that leads straight up, although it looks like there are many twists and turns, this tortuous process is worth it. Lin Feng smiled and clenched his fists. Now he could feel his strength bursting forth just by standing there. His entire body was filled with energy. Even though he was in this unknown region, he did not feel nervous or uneasy, let alone fear or shock. He was full of confidence. Compared to when I first entered the Purple Star Realm, my strength has increased by 10 times. However, it's better to be careful. Lin Feng nodded lightly. Although he was confident, he was not arrogant. The danger of the Purple Star Realm was beyond his imagination. Whether it was the inexplicable first stage or the dangerous second stage, they were all filled with danger. But now, since I'm here, I'll take it easy. Let's find a place to settle down first. It won't be too late to plan later. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled, and he already had a comprehensive plan in his heart. He was not in a hurry. After finding a tree hole, Lin Feng settled down for the time being. It was a gigantic tree with a diameter of 100 meters and a height of several thousand meters. Although it had just become a wood spirit, it had yet to develop sentience. It didn't even have an instinctive consciousness. With such abundant spiritual energy, no wonder this tree could grow so big. There are also those giant fish in the Black Lake. I'm afraid they're terrifyingly strong because of the dense spiritual energy. Lin Feng sat cross-legged, his eyes sparkling. At this moment, it was absorbing the star crystal, and its body was flashing with a dense red light. ZZ, the attacks were like beams of light, causing the giant beasts chasing after it to be struck by lightning. However, the attack range wasn't large. To the thousands and tens of thousands of giant beasts, it only killed a drop in the ocean. It couldn't change the situation of being chased. However, Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. Thunder attack. It emits such a strong gold origin energy. This is a gold-type giant beast. Lin Feng was shocked, but his eyebrows were slightly raised. He had read the demon beast record, but he had never seen such a beast. It was strange. Maybe it's because of the environment here. The spirit energy is concentrated, forming a unique body and characteristics. Lin Feng thought to himself, but he wasn't too confused, because many of the giant beasts chasing after this gold-type giant beast couldn't recognize it. It must have angered everyone. Did this golden horn beast get something? If it continues to develop like this, when its energy is exhausted, it will die. Lin Feng shook his head. He didn't have the heart to help it. What did the battle between beasts have to do with him? What's more, not to mention the benefits he would get from saving it, just how to save it was a huge problem. Suddenly, there was a loud roar. The golden horn beast let out a scream. It was attacked by a giant beast behind it. A huge wound appeared on its tail, and blood flowed out. Lin Feng frowned. At that moment, he seemed to meet the golden horn beast's eyes. Ding! A familiar sound rang in his mind. Gold-type beast Thunder Shao is asking for your help. Are you willing to help? A cold voice sounded. Lin Feng's eyes widened. A signal. The signal of the third checkpoint had finally appeared. It meant that he was finally involved in the training. However, this was not the reason why Lin Feng's heart was pounding in fear at this moment. It was because Gold-type beast Thunder Shao, this golden horn beast, is actually a god beast. Lin Feng's eyes kept changing, and he felt his mouth go dry. He had never forgotten what Duo said to him that day. To increase the level of a sky spirit master and a martial god, he had to light up all kinds of star plates, and the fastest and simplest way was to kill a god beast. However, it was easier said than done, not to mention whether he could meet a god beast alone. Even if he could, how could he kill one with his star ocean level power? But now, an opportunity had appeared in front of him. In front of him was a god beast. As long as he could kill it, he would be able to light up the golden fate star plate, and the power of his flames would no longer be limited. The level of a martial god and a sky spirit master would break through the star river level and enter the star ocean level in the blink of an eye. By then, he would be able to cultivate without any obstacles, without any restraints. Chapter 633. Lightning radiated in all directions, its power boundless. Lin Feng saw that the eyes of the golden horn divine beast, Thunder Meng, had completely changed, and the most eye-catching thing was undoubtedly its golden horn. The root of the golden horn became larger, and Thunder Meng's head swelled up, its expression ferocious. Thunder Meng's original appearance was mighty and majestic, but now it had completely mutated. Even the golden armor on its back was condensed and filled with a deep metallic luster. I don't know if it has mutated or evolved, but without a doubt, its strength has greatly increased. Especially, Lin Feng's eyes sparkled as he looked at the roaring thunder. It was no longer a single bolt of lightning that fell into the dense crowd of giant beasts behind him, but a continuous thunder ring that was astonishing. Rumble, dong, dong, dong. The earth shook, accompanied by the fierce roars of the beasts. In the sky filled with gray stones, numerous strong beasts were struck by the lightning and turned into ashes. Among them, the slightly weaker giant beasts couldn't escape the fate of death, even if they were grazed by the lightning. They were reduced to ashes and scattered ashes. Thunder Meng had completely mutated. Amazing, as expected of a divine beast. Blessed by the heavens, it won't die so easily. Lin Feng pondered in his heart. That ominous premonition was growing increasingly intense. But no matter how powerful it is, logically speaking, it should have no chance of winning against 10,000 beasts. Lin Feng's eyes were burning as he stared at the battlefield. For now, to him, whether or not the mission was completed was secondary. The most important thing was whether or not he could kill this metal-type divine beast and obtain its natal plate. This was of utmost importance to him. When the two sides fight to the death, when this Thunder Meng is an arrow at the end of its flight, I will have a chance to kill it. For now, there was only one thing for him to do: wait patiently. But was it that simple? Bang! Thunder Meng's body expanded several times. As the furious lightning struck one after another, Thunder Meng's horn grew longer and more terrifying. Its power was condensing, and its aura was boiling. It was 10 times stronger than before. In fact, even the bleeding tail had healed. The might of the divine beast was comparable to the heavens. The blood of the divine beast seemed to have awakened. Lei Meng's eyes were filled with a cold light. Lin Feng felt an inexplicable tremor in his heart as the feeling of danger grew stronger and stronger. His intuition told him that the lightning puppet in front of him had become extremely terrifying. Furthermore, it seemed to hold a grudge against him. Too close. Stay away. Lin Feng shivered inwardly. His experience told him that it would be difficult for Lei Meng to defeat tens of thousands of enemies. However, it was better to be careful. The power of a Star Lord. This isn't the power of the Thunder Centipede itself. It seems to be borrowing something. It was not uncommon for human martial artists to stimulate their potential and increase their strength in a short period of time. Lin Feng cautiously retreated. The shockwaves from the battle were secondary. The most important thing was that he felt an inexplicable sense of danger, causing him to feel uneasy. Lei Meng didn't chase after them. Instead, he threw his head back and roared. That golden horn blossomed with a crystalline luster, triggering furious thunder, the rumbling sound even louder. At this time, on Lei Meng's neck, a golden light bloomed with a scorching aura like the sun. Ripples spread out, and the light shone in all directions, illuminating everything in the surroundings. The intense metal element completely covered the other 4 elements. Lei Meng's expression became extremely ferocious. In an instant, his body trembled violently. 1 split into 2, 2 into 4, and 4 into 8. There were too many clones. Boom, boom, boom. Lei Meng roared, and all his clones echoed him. Like an alpha wolf, he led all of the Thunder Slaughter avatars straight into the formation of behemoths. Lei Meng, begin your counterattack. Amazing. So powerful. Lin Feng hid far behind them, his eyes shining. This doppelganger technique was completely different from his secret doppelganger. Lei Meng's clones had completely merged with all the strength of the main body, including the clones. With his strength increased tenfold, Lei Meng was like a tiger in a flock of sheep. Wherever he went, blood flowed like a river. None of the beasts could withstand his claw or bite. Even the spikes on his back were extremely sharp and invincible. This was the power of a divine beast. Metal element divine beasts were especially good at close combat. In an instant, boom, boom, the sound of thunder became louder, and heaven and earth trembled. Lei Meng's horn bloomed with a strong light, and lightning struck down. With his own strength, Lei Meng fought tens of thousands of beasts as if he was invincible. How powerful! Roar! Lei Meng roared into the sky. This deafening roar drowned out all other sounds. Accompanied by the shocking pressure of the thunder, Lei Meng's strength and power were pushed to the peak. It was quiet. In an instant, soft roars sounded from the beasts. Puff! Puff! All the beasts leaned forward and knelt on the ground, as if they were kneeling to an emperor, full of respect and reverence. At this time, no other sound could be heard except for this roar. Lei Meng raised his head proudly, like a high and mighty emperor. Looking down on all the beasts, he became famous in one battle. The beasts actually submitted. This divine beast, Lei Meng, is so domineering and mighty. Lin Feng was shocked, and he could only find it hard to believe. Seeing Lei Meng show its domineering aura, leading the beasts and becoming the king of the beasts, he was even more shocked. But this time, oh no, Lin Feng's face was instantly filled with horror. At this moment, he finally knew what he was afraid of. Danger! Go! Lin Feng gritted his teeth. In the blink of an eye, Lin Feng fled without turning his head back. At this time, a familiar and calm voice sounded in his mind leisurely. The first kill has failed. You will be chased by the violent metal element divine beast, Lei Meng, for 2 hours. The cold voice made Lin Feng's heart turn cold. The violent metal element divine beast Lei Meng. 2 hours of pursuit. Thinking about it, one could imagine how terrifying these 2 hours would be. A metal element divine beast, Lei Ming, with 8 clones, each with the power of a Star-Lord. How shocking this formation was. How was he supposed to defend himself? Whoosh! Lin Feng's face was solemn. Without looking back, he sped away with all his strength. At this point, it was useless to think about anything else. What he should think about now was how to get through this difficult situation. Roar! Roar! Crazy roars shook the heavens and the earth. Lin Feng smiled bitterly. Without looking back, he could feel that this was the group of beasts that numbered in the tens of thousands. Sand billowed, and now they were chasing him. The funny thing was that their original target was the metal element divine beast Lei Ming, but now it was him. Even more interesting was that he had watched all of this coldly from the sidelines. But now he was in trouble. Run. Run with all his strength. The aura behind him was abnormally huge. If he was caught, he would definitely die. So fast. Fortunately, I pulled away enough just now. Lin Feng thought to himself that he was lucky. Fortunately, he had sensed danger and put some distance between them. Otherwise, at this moment, he would have been trapped in the group of beasts, helpless. It was better to be safe than sorry. Secret clone. Deceleration space. Lin Feng's eyes shone, but he did not panic. Although his speed was not as fast as those beasts, it was not as if he had no chance. He used his strength perfectly and opened up hope. The more dangerous it was, the calmer he had to be. The use of deceleration space doubled his chances of escaping, and his speed increased sharply. At this moment, the secret clone and the main body suddenly separated. The main body was still running, but the secret clone suddenly changed direction in the area covered by the black fog, leaving behind a trail of fire. Boom! A fireball condensed in the secret clone's hands. Go! Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. He did not need to condense the fireballs at all. With a thought, he blasted them toward the group of furious beasts. The fireballs weren't very powerful, but one after another, the roars were deafening, and it provoked the anger of every giant beast, making them hysterical and furious. Angry roars shook the heavens, especially those beasts that were running at the front. Their eyes were bloodshot, and they wanted nothing more than to tear Lin Feng to pieces. As they got closer, he could already hear the heavy breathing of these beasts. Lin Feng's secret clone's lips curled into a faint smile. A huge fireball condensed in his hands, and it was filled with a terrifying power. The fireball grew bigger and bigger as the beasts got closer. In an instant, boom! Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. The explosion of the fireball masked the emergence of other powers. Amidst the flames, the roars of the beasts could be heard. It was a chaotic scene. However, they did not notice that Lin Feng's figure had already disappeared from the spot. He no longer existed. The secret clone had returned. Powerful strength. But their intelligence is not very high. No wonder they submitted to the metal-type divine beast, Thunder Centipede. Lin Feng thought to himself. He understood a lot. In the world of beasts, the strong were respected. This principle was followed more than anywhere else. The tens of thousands of giant beasts could certainly kill Lei Ming, but they didn't know how to weigh the pros and cons. They only knew that Lei Ming's power was strong enough to make them look up to him, but they couldn't reach him. It was that simple. There was no reason and no need for a reason, because this was the law of nature. The strong were king. In the bleak wind, Lin Feng was still running. Although he had lured the beasts away, he was not in a safe place. The 2-hour chase had only just begun. But it's a little strange. Then why didn't Thunder Centipede come after me? Maybe it was too confident. It thought that these beasts could tear me to pieces, or maybe, in its opinion, it doesn't matter whether it can kill me or not. Lin Feng murmured. He was puzzled, but no matter which possibility it was a good sign for him. At least, if Thunder Centipede did not come out personally, it would be much easier for him to deal with those stupid and uncivilized beasts in these 2 hours. I hope I can get through these 2 hours safely. Lin Feng's eyes brightened. 2 more chapters, Chapter 634. Roar! Roar! The furious roar resounded once again. Lin Feng's heart trembled, but he continued to flee at top speed. Although he relied on the secret clone to buy some time, it only took a moment for the army of giant beasts to charge at him again. And they were even faster. They seemed to know that they were being played, or perhaps they were completely enraged. The current army of giant beasts had undoubtedly become even more terrifying. The spirit chi here is too abundant. That's why my aura has also become stronger. So, it's easy for them to pinpoint my exact location. Lin Feng thought to himself, concentrating wholeheartedly. He fled in a canyon that was densely packed with rocks. Sand and stones filled the air, making this place look like a barren land. There was nothing but rocks. However, it was so vast that it looked like a Pang-Ran continent with no end in sight. It can be done once, but not twice. I'm afraid that the secret clone tactic won't work a second time. It's only been an incense stick's worth of time. There's still a lot of time before 2 hours. I have to think a long-term plan. Lin Feng pondered, his eyes flashing. Although the aura of the giant beasts behind him was getting stronger and stronger, and their speed was getting faster and faster, he had to remain calm. Panic, fear, these negative emotions were of no use. What if I hide my aura? Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. Then he shook his head and instantly rejected this idea. It was too dangerous. Once his aura was seen through, once he was discovered, he would be caught in the horde of giant beasts. Only death would await him, and he would have nowhere to run. He would only use this method if he was really at his wit's end. However, it was undoubtedly a bad plan. The best plan was not to stake everything on a single throw. Instead, even if an unexpected situation occurred, there would still be a chance of survival. This is a canyon. These giant beasts don't seem to be able to fly. Lin Feng's eyes were bright as he thought to himself, if I fly into the sky, they won't be able to chase after me. But Lin Feng hesitated, his brows tightly knitted. How could this checkpoint be broken so easily? There must be a flaw. Lin Feng's heart trembled as he stared at the sky. The density of spiritual energy here was extremely high. Not only on land, but in the sky, he would be subjected to even greater pressure, and his reaction would probably be even slower. However, this was only a small matter. The most important thing was that the sky might be even more dangerous than the land. On land, I might be able to think of other ways. But if I were to meet with mishap in the air, the sky is so vast that I have no place to rely on. If you're not strong enough, only death awaits you. Lin Feng was very clear that he had experienced it when he was in the Sky Martial Continent. The sky looked calm and safe, but it was much more dangerous than the land. This is a secondary plan, but it's still extremely dangerous. There must be a better plan. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. He didn't give up. The distance that had been pulled apart just now was gradually being pulled back. Many of the giant beasts in the army were extremely fast, much faster than him. Whoosh! Whoosh! Lin Feng's right foot flickered with a gust of wind as he changed his direction twice in a row, passing through a layer of giant rocks. His direction changed 90 degrees. At this moment, Lin Feng's eyes suddenly lit up. Direction? Yes, that's it. Using this method, it must be the best plan. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. The corners of his mouth curved slightly as he slowly understood. He had finally found the best plan that he had been searching for. Whoosh! Whoosh! His figure changed many times. Lin Feng cleverly made use of the wind vortex to shuttle through. In this canyon, there were many giant rocks that formed an existence as thick as a mountain wall. The small ones were thousands of meters long and wide, and hundreds of meters tall. The large ones were tens of thousands of meters long and wide, and thousands of meters tall. Compared to the size of the giant beasts, they were even larger. Lin Feng was extremely agile as he shuttled through the mountain walls. Other magical beasts might need to slow down to make turns, but Lin Feng didn't need to. The power of the wind vortex was fully displayed. Although the distance between Lin Feng and the giant beast didn't increase, it also didn't decrease by a single step. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly as he continued to make turns. He was full of confidence. He naturally didn't want to rely on the mountain walls to shake off the giant beasts. Reality had proven that shaking them off was useless. What he wanted was to throw them far away in one go. This time, the outcome would be decided. Almost there. Almost there. Lin Feng's expression was resolute as he maintained his fastest speed. The roars of the giant beasts behind him were even more intense and loud, much louder than before. Again and again, and again and again, and again and again. At this moment, if one looked down from the sky, Lin Feng and the giant beasts behind him were about to form a large, crooked circle. Lin Feng was actually speeding toward the rear of the giant beast army. How shocking. Now, Lin Feng's eyes instantly lit up. Yuli, fire dragon shield. A faint red crystal ball flashed, wrapping around Lin Feng's body. The fiery red light formed a fiery dragon shield, protecting Lin Feng. Condensing the greatest defensive power, Lin Feng instantly jumped up and led the head of the giant beast army behind him to crash into the tail of the giant beast army. Boom! It was chaos. Roar, roar, roar. In the giant beast formation, sand and stones were flying everywhere, and people were thrown off their feet. These giant beasts were different from human martial artists. Their small bodies were hundreds of meters long and wide, and the big ones were thousands of meters long and wide. When their huge bodies collided, it was impossible to avoid, especially those giant beasts that landed at the rear of the giant beast army. All of them had extremely strong defensive power, but were extremely slow. It was like a natural shield, forcefully blocking the fast beasts in front of it. It was extremely lively. Lin Feng spat out a mouthful of blood. He sped through the giant beast army, but it was inevitable that he would be attacked a few times. But just as he expected, the giant beasts that landed at the rear of the giant beast army were not too strong. With his strength, he could indeed survive with the help of Yu Li and the fire dragon shield. Most importantly, these slow giant beasts could not catch up to him at all. Instead, they could help him. At this moment, Lin Feng had moved from the front of the giant beast army to the rear. I'm finally safe. Lin Feng wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, his chest rising and falling slightly. His injuries were only minor and could be healed in the blink of an eye. At this time, the giant beast army was in chaos and could not pose a threat to him in the short term. There were still scattered giant beasts chasing behind him, but these giant beasts could not catch up to him at all, and the distance between them would only increase. It could be said that this battle of pursuit was already more than half a success. It was not too difficult to get through 2 hours. The distance between them increased. Lin Feng's eyes were bright, but he was cautious. Half the time had passed, and the giant beasts behind him had already disappeared. He had completely shaken them off. Even if I shake off these giant beasts, there's still Lei Ming. Lin Feng's eyes were deep, and he did not dare to be careless. If you fail the first time, you will be chased by the violent metal-type divine beast, Lei Ming. Time limit, 2 hours. This sentence appeared in his mind. Lin Feng remembered it very clearly, and he knew how strong the violent Lei Ming was. Just a clone would be difficult to deal with. But it's a little strange. Why is it not moving after so long? Could it be that it has given up on chasing me? Lin Feng's eyes were deep, and he felt a little strange. He spread out his aura, but he did not sense the presence of Lei Ming, and he did not know where it was now. That's not right. I just subdued the beasts, and it's time to establish my power. Even if there is no deep hatred between us, there is no possibility that it will let me go. Lin Feng was cold, and the more he thought about it, the stranger he felt. A divine beast's aura was far more sensitive than a human martial artist, and it was in harmony with heaven and earth. There was no doubt that he could not hide from Lei Ming. But it had not appeared for so long, and there must be something wrong. Could it be it's not that it doesn't want to come, but that it can't? Lin Feng's chest rose and fell slightly, and this thought appeared in his mind, and his heart trembled. Very likely, Lei Ming's power just now, as the voice said, was in a berserk state. And human martial artists have similar secret skills, which can stimulate their potential and even burst out with power that they originally could not have. But the consequences are quite serious. Equivalent exchange, what you get is what you pay. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and he clenched his fists. The possibility was very high, but if he guessed wrong, the consequences would be quite serious. It was like sending a sheep to the tiger's mouth. Should he fight? Kill, the third checkpoint, kill. Lin Feng frowned and gently gritted his teeth. If my guess is correct, it's referring to me and this metal-type divine beast, Lei Ming. Either you die or I live. This is the meaning of kill. Fight. Lin Feng nodded heavily. Since only one could live between him and Lei Ming, there was no need to hesitate. Either he killed Lei Ming, or he was killed by Lei Ming. If there was danger, there would be an opportunity. And now, although it seemed to be the most dangerous time, it was probably also the time when he had the greatest chance. Kill Lei Ming. Returning the way he came, Lin Feng was extremely cautious. This was a real gamble, and he was betting on whether he guessed correctly or not. These 2 hours should be the second kill. If I miss it, the third time will be even more difficult. Lin Feng nodded, and his heart suddenly understood. After thinking about it, he did miss a good opportunity, and it was when all the giant beasts were in shock. If he had attacked Lei Ming, perhaps, at this time, the situation was completely different. It could be done once, but not twice. The difficulty will only get higher and higher. There's less than an hour left, and I have to make good use of it. But where is it? Lin Feng's brows flashed, and he looked around for Lei Ming. But he found nothing. It had already left the place where the explosion occurred. However, the corners of Lin Feng's mouth rose slightly, and there was a confident smile. Sure enough, it's guilty. My guess was right. Lin Feng's eyes flashed faintly, and he clenched his right fist, feeling a strong sense of hope. He had almost missed this opportunity. But now, let's see where you can hide, Lei Ming. Lin Feng's eyes flashed, and he looked around, flashing with wisdom. Chapter 635. Over here. The corners of Lin Feng's mouth curled up slightly. On the sandy ground, the footprints of the giant beasts could be clearly seen. Especially where the giant beasts passed, the giant footprints were extremely messy. Looking into the distance, other than the tens of thousands of giant beasts that were chasing after him, there was also a small trail. This small trail was roughly estimated to consist of about 100 giant beasts. It was inconspicuous in this large area of sand, but it couldn't escape his eyes. Whoosh! Lin Feng was extremely fast. His flying figure looked directly at his feet, becoming more and more certain of his guess. If this metal-type divine beast Thunder Mantis didn't have a ghost in its heart, why would it hide like this? I have to hurry. I'm afraid these 2 hours aren't just for the Thunder Mantis to chase after me. It's also the time limit for the second kill. Once these 2 hours pass, the Thunder Mantis will most likely recover its strength, or it will have a way to protect itself. At that time, it will be more difficult to kill it than now. Lin Feng's heart trembled, and he immediately increased his speed. If his guess was correct, this was definitely the best opportunity to kill the Thunder Mantis. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn. As expected, it hasn't gone far. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. The Thunder Mantis would definitely be in a weakened state after its eruption, and it would need to rest and be unable to travel. Hiding behind a huge rock wall, Lin Feng's eyes flickered with a bright light as he secretly glanced at a place not far away. In front of him was a deep canyon. Cold wind was blowing, and it had a unique geographical environment. Dozens of giant beasts were guarding the canyon. They were either resting or vigilantly looking around. Behind them, there was a huge rock cave that emitted a faintly discernible pressure. Very good. Lin Feng's lips curled up. Once again, he was certain that his guess was not far from the truth. If this divine beast, Thunder Mantis, wasn't injured, why would it sneakily hide in this cave? It only brought about 100 giant beasts to guard it. Obviously, it still doesn't trust these new subordinates too much. Lin Feng thought to himself. He understood Lei Meng's concerns. If he put himself in their shoes, he would also do the same. Once he brought too many subordinates, what would he do if they attacked him when he was weak? Wouldn't he be shooting himself in the foot? Nearly 100 giant beasts should be the limit of what it can endure. A divine beast is indeed a divine beast. Although it is heavily injured, it still has its strength. It is not something that I can match up to now. Lin Feng thought to himself. He could totally guess Lei Meng's current strength. It was definitely stronger than these 100 giant beast guards. As for him, he was no match for these giant beasts. If I can't even kill Lei Meng in its weakened state, once it recovers its strength, my chances will become even slimmer. Lin Feng frowned as he thought to himself. Time was becoming more and more pressing. The second execution. If I don't succeed, I'll die trying. Lin Feng clenched his right fist, his mind filled with thoughts. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly as he looked at his surroundings. Then, he looked at the entrance of the cave and thought of something. Lei Meng is very careful. It is releasing its pressure to restrain these giant beasts. Obviously, Lei Meng doesn't trust them. Perhaps I can take advantage of this. Lin Feng's eyes flashed with wisdom. He nodded lightly. This was a dragon's pool and a tiger's den. Naturally, he couldn't barge in recklessly. Once he entered the cave, he wouldn't be able to choose whether to leave or escape. After all, it was a sealed place. Swoosh! Lin Feng retreated quickly. His figure instantly left the canyon. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled as he searched for a place of mud and stone. Although this was a canyon and most of it was sand and stone, there were still many plant life forms. For example, under the giant tree that he was hiding in, there was a large area of mud that nurtured all kinds of plant life forms. And this was exactly what he needed at the moment. Found it. Lin Feng stepped on the ground. Although there were few places of mud, it was not difficult to find. This place wasn't far from the canyon. The location was just right. There wasn't much mud, but he only needed a little. Come out, Wing. Lin Feng's left eyebrow flashed. Red and green light shone brightly. Wing's appearance caused the branches to dance, filled with a powerful wood spirit energy. Oh! Lin Feng's eyes flashed. Wing, you? Hee boss, I've reached the Star Sea level bottleneck. I'm only one step away from the Star Lord level. Wing smiled with great joy. Although he hadn't been with Lin Feng for long, Wing had encountered many fortuitous encounters. After absorbing so much nourishment, he had indeed reached the peak of energy. Is that so? Not bad. Lin Feng smiled from the bottom of his heart. If Wing could increase his level and become a Star Lord, his strength would be reborn. It would be of great help to him. But now, do me a favor, Wing. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. Boss, just tell me. In the huge cave, all of a sudden, roar. Roars of shock and anger could be heard. That was Lei Meng's furious roar. The entire ground shook. It was obvious how angry it was. The giant beasts guarding the door were all shocked. They looked at each other, feeling the anger of their king. They didn't know what to do. Instantly, as the first giant beast rushed into the cave, the rest of the giant beasts rushed in. It was chaos. Very good. Behind the rock wall, Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. After sharing the winged bug's vision, he no longer had any worries. The divine beast, Lei Meng, was indeed in a weakened state. Its shining golden armor was extremely dim, and the golden horn on its head had no luster at all, as if it had lost all its energy. Lying on the ground, Lei Meng's breathing was ragged. It was clearly injured. Boom! Boom! The giant beasts rushed into the cave. Lei Meng, who had been bitten and bitten by the winged bug, became even more furious. It was hysterical. Roar! It opened its mouth, and a huge golden ball of light blasted toward the cave entrance. In an instant, boom, a violent explosion sounded in the cave. The giant beasts running at the front, eager to protect their masters, were all blown to pieces. However, the giant beasts behind him continued to advance and ran even faster, fearing that the enemy would harm their master. However, in Lei Meng's eyes, it was even more furious. In its view, these disloyal subordinates wanted to take advantage of its weakness and kill it. In addition, the countless winged bugs on its body made it even more anxious and restless. The dim horns surged with violent lightning and blasted at the subordinates who dared to challenge its authority, trying to make them stop rebelling. But what it didn't expect was that these giant beasts only had the lowest level of intelligence. They, who were loyal to their masters, didn't know that it was their new master, Lei Ming, who attacked them. They thought that the enemy had broken into the cave. The battle started because of the misunderstanding. Lin Feng smiled indifferently. Demonic beasts are just demonic beasts. Even if Lei Ming is a divine beast, it is still too young. In terms of intelligence, it is only equivalent to a 7 or 8-year-old child. How can it distinguish clearly? Lei Ming's age could be seen from its strength. Perhaps its strength was not weak at all, but that was because of the concentration of spiritual energy here, not because it had grown up. This point could be seen from the giant beasts here. Let's fight. The more intense the fight, the better. I want to see how much power this Lei Ming has hidden. Lin Feng smiled indifferently, jumped out of the rock wall, and landed in front of the cave. His eyes flashed, and the corners of his mouth lifted slightly. He would sit on a mountain and watch the tigers fight. Time continued to pass. There was not much time left before the 2-hour time limit. The battle in the cave was getting more and more intense. Lei Ming roared again and again, angrily launching attacks again and again. At this moment, these giant beasts had suffered heavy casualties. Basically, they were completely dead before they could reach Lei Ming. Although the cave was large, it was relatively speaking. One had to know that these giant beast bodies were extremely exaggerated, and Lei Ming's body was even larger. Attacking in a limited range depended on the maximum strength of the attack. How could these giant beasts be compared to Lei Ming? A starving camel was still bigger than a horse. Boom! Rumble! Lei Ming kept launching attacks, but its face was getting uglier and uglier. The golden horn on its head was dim, and the scales on its body were soft, as if it had lost all its strength. Even its roar had become much weaker. It had already exhausted all of its strength. But Lei Ming's eyes did not lose confidence. It was very clear that it was about to recover its strength. Although it was not 100%, it was enough. The time of weakness was almost up. Bang! With the last attack, Lei Ming killed the last giant beast. At this moment, it was almost paralyzed on the ground, and its strength was less than 100%. But the good news was the danger alarm had been lifted. There was a trace of relief in its eyes. Lei Ming's breathing was rapid, but the dim light on its body began to shine slightly. There was not much time left in the 2 hours. It was about to be reborn. But was it that easy? Chi, chi, chi. At the entrance of the cave, countless branches stretched out like poisonous snakes attacking. Lei Ming, who was so tired that it was almost paralyzed on the ground, suddenly widened its eyes in anger. It did not expect that the danger was not over yet. The lightning was strong, and it blasted out another ball of lightning. The branches were immediately smashed into pieces, but almost in an instant, countless more branches flew over. The attacks came wave after wave, and the speed was extremely fast. Boom, boom, boom. The furious Lei Ming used all its remaining strength to explode. The balls of lightning were filled with extreme pressure, and they destroyed the troublesome branches again and again, but each attack squeezed the last of Lei Ming's strength. It was like a sponge that had no water, and the last bit of water was squeezed out. Until, bang, there was a violent burst of light. Dense flames condensed into countless branches and waved behind him. A faint black figure, holding the nightmare demon spear, slowly strode over. Around his body, abundant flames condensed, and the flame dragon shield was completely protected, dazzling. Lin Feng had arrived. Chapter 636. Like a hunter catching his prey, strength was not everything. This was the case for Lin Feng. The existence of the human race in the Douling world was because they had wisdom that other creatures could not reach. This did not seem to be of any help to strength, but sometimes it had a crucial effect. Star power, 8th grade. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Although the divine beast Thunder Centipede had yet to reach the end of its tether, he had no choice but to appear, because the time limit of 2 hours was about to end. The red light flashed and condensed into a bright luster. Lin Feng's eyes bloomed with bright colors, and a white light appeared in his hand. The surrounding environment suddenly changed. A land of white snow replaced the rocky cave, and the Lei Ming turned pale with fright. It was as if it had been moved from a familiar environment to a strange place. The realm of blizzard. Whoosh! Whoosh! Snowflakes flew down. Each snowflake was like a thin hexagonal hidden weapon, flying down from all directions. Lei Ming's whole body was shining with lightning. Gritting its teeth, it used the last of its strength to defend. The snowflake's attack was overwhelming. When they fell on the Lei Ming's body, they sounded like vajra vibrating, making clanging sounds. Although the golden armor was dim and weak, it still had some power left. It was not so easy to break. However, the dimming luster proved that the Lei Ming had no more strength left. It had to fight to the death. It could not wait for the time limit of 2 hours to end. Otherwise, once its defense collapsed, it would definitely die. Roar! Facing Lin Feng's attack, the Lei Ming's whole body trembled. It used all its strength to squeeze out the last of its hidden strength. Its huge body suddenly became blurry. It split into 2, then 4, and when it split into 8, the Lei Ming's figure was blurry and flickering. It cannot be separated. It can no longer continue. But even so, the 3 doppelgangers and the 4 Lei Ming were still extremely terrifying. Roar! The Lei Ming roared. In an instant, it sped up. It had the absolute advantage of numbers. The 4 Lei Ming sped up almost at the same time. There was not much of the metal origin energy left, so the Lei Ming could no longer use energy balls to attack. And this gave Lin Feng ample opportunity. Master once said that there are generally 2 types of clones. Firstly, the power of the doppelganger is weakened by the main body. This type of doppelganger can exist independently. Usually, it's between 10% and 50%. Secondly, the clone's power is a copy of the main body's power, and it will possess 80 to 90% of the main body's power. Although these clones were powerful, they were attached to the main body. When a main body is alive, its power is limitless. When a main body is destroyed, the doppelganger will naturally vanish. There might be a third type, but it's very rare. His eyes blazing, Lin Feng's figure instantly moved forward. His eyes were burning as he stared at Lei Ming's body. He had been paying close attention to it all this time. The 4 Thunder House would sometimes gather and sometimes disperse, forming blurry afterimages in an attempt to make it impossible for him to distinguish where their true bodies were. Perhaps if its speed was fast enough, it could indeed confuse his vision, but now it was already an arrow at the end of its flight. Sorry, Lei Ming. Today is the anniversary of your death. With a cold gaze, Lin Feng's nightmare demon spear behind his back rang loudly, and his left hand glowed fiercely. Star power violently blasted out. The flame dragon shield tightly protected his body, and the nightmare demon spear in his hand was bursting with light and shadow. Facing the Thunder House all-out attacks from all directions, Lin Feng didn't dodge at all. Instead, he retreated in order to advance. Throat chakra, human acupoint. Lin Feng's voice fell from the sky. In an instant, his left arm completely changed, and his flexibility, extension, and other aspects were instantly strengthened. His attack speed was greatly enhanced, and so was his attack power. This was Lin Feng's current trump card. Emitting a bright light, the vortex of thousands of small holes changed the airflow, giving him a forward momentum. As the black fog condensed, Lin Feng's speed soared, and he rushed straight out of the encirclement of the 8th Thunder House, tearing open a gap with his speed. Before the Thunder House could attack, the Nightmare Demon Spear turned into a ray of light and shadow. Advanced Man and Spear as one, proficient level. Light and Shadow Spear Art. Lin Feng's left hand suddenly clenched. A ray of light flashed past, but even Lin Feng's eyes couldn't keep up with a nightmare demon spear speed. It was extremely fast, with speed, explosive power. Bang! A heart-shaking explosion sounded. Lin Feng's eyes glowed, and his left hand felt as if it had pierced something. But in an instant, a sharp pain followed, and lightning flashed. His body suffered an unusually powerful attack at the same time. The remaining 3 Thunder House bared their teeth, and their burning attacks burst out. Yu Li's defense was torn apart in an instant, and the power of the Flame Dragon Shield disappeared in an instant. This was the Thunder House final attack, their most tenacious counterattack. His body was completely paralyzed. Victory and defeat were decided in this instant. Clenching his teeth, Lin Feng's left hand star power violently rushed out, completely abandoning all defense. Fight to your heart's content. Hiss! Hiss! The roars were hysterical. The Thunder House eyes were blood red, and its trembling body was filled with unwillingness, as if it had gone mad. The 2-hour time limit was about to end, and there were only a few seconds left. Its body had begun to regain its senses and strength. The dim golden armor seemed to be about to wake up, and the golden horn on its head condensed lightning. But there were no more buts. Everything was turned into nothingness in Lin Feng's spear. Go to hell, Lin Feng shouted, and star power covered the sky and earth. He sought victory in danger, no longer holding back. Although his body seemed to be torn to pieces, he had no way to retreat. Once the Thunder House recovered its strength, he would be the one to die. Boom! The sound of an explosion rang out. Blood splashed everywhere, and the surrounding snowflakes were still bright, but the light flashed and returned to the cave in an instant. Puff! Lin Feng spat out blood, but he stood firmly. Looking weak, Lin Feng's body was surrounded by electric light. He trembled slightly. His injuries were not light, and his flesh was badly mangled. But compared to the lifeless Thunder House, Lin Feng had the last laugh and stood at the end. He won. He had finally won. Ha ha ha! Lin Feng weakly grinned. He wanted to laugh out loud, but he didn't have the strength to do so. This is the Thunder House Divine Beast Natal Chart. Lin Feng's eyes were bright. In front of him, a bright object was floating, exuding a strong aura of the metal element. It was like the origin of the metal element. Just by looking at it, one could feel its abundant power. Lightning flashed around it. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled, and his heart was filled with excitement. The gold natal chart. It was one of the other 4 natal charts that he had been longing for. Now, it had finally appeared in front of him. Pa! Using the last of his strength, Lin Feng grabbed it and swallowed it without hesitation. Metal, wood, water, and earth. No matter which of the 4 natal charts he devoured, there would be no bottlenecks on his path to becoming a martial god and a celestial spirit master. The Phoenix natal chart would be enough to upgrade him to a new level. At that time, the path ahead would be smooth, and there would be no more obstacles. Whoosh! Lin Feng's eyes were bright. An extremely powerful force entered his body. If he were an ordinary warrior, he would have exploded and died. This kind of energy was beyond the limit of human endurance. But Lin Feng was different. It's coming. This is the feeling. The Thunder House natal chart entered his body and merged with the Phoenix natal chart. The latter flashed with intense energy, as if it still wanted to resist and abuse him. But in Lin Feng's body, a phoenix roared to the sky, and it was full of domineering aura, intimidating the ownerless Thunder House natal chart. At this time, the natal chart merged with the natal spirit, and it shone even more brightly. Swoosh! Lin Feng's golden natal chart shone brightly. It was the second light spot below the phoenix's head, and it was second only to the natal chart. When it came into contact with the Thunder House natal chart, they overlapped in an instant. The energy repulsed and attracted each other, and it fluctuated violently. Devour. Merge. What a powerful force. Lin Feng's face was ugly. It felt like he was about to swallow a big cake that he couldn't swallow, but he had to. There was no way out. Only by merging with the Divine Beast Thunderhouse natal chart could he light up the metal natal chart. Once the Phoenix natal chart enters a new level, the devouring fire and the rebirth fire will have no more obstacles. When a martial god and celestial spirit master advance, my strength will increase rapidly. When I return to the Yinling royal mansion, I will have enough strength. Clenching his fists, Lin Feng's eyes were full of extreme light. He still remembered the day when he was forced to enter the Purple Star Realm. If he was strong enough, how could he be in such a difficult situation? However, many times it was a blessing in disguise. I didn't expect it to be the Divine Beast natal chart. I thought I would have to enter the wood spiritual land to break through, but I didn't expect. The world is unpredictable. Lin Feng closed his eyes and sat cross-legged. At this moment, the skin on his body seemed to be cracking. Lin Feng frowned as he experienced the most intense change. It was not just a merge, but also an advancement. Yinling Royal Mansion, Cloud Realm. It's been so many days. I wonder how Lindigo is doing. Qin Xianqian looked worried. Don't worry, Sister Qianqian. With Linda Ji's strength, he will be safe and sound. Shui Linglong comforted her, but her eyes flashed with uneasiness. After all, so many days had passed, and Lin Feng still sent her a silent message. How could the two girls not be worried? However, although they were worried, they still remembered what Lin Feng said. Other than cultivating in Cloud Realm, they had never gone out. Perhaps the efficiency of such cultivation was not very high, but at least it was very safe. Among the 450 disciples of Fierce Yin sect, there were still martial artists left. The weakest were Qin Xianqian and Shui Linglong. Lin Feng's action that day was very wise. Otherwise, with the two girls' strength, it would not be easy for them to survive, let alone obtain anything in the fourth heaven. Because of the existence of Wangu, the malefic star, it had already turned the fourth heaven into a massacre hell. Fierce Yin sect suffered heavy casualties. Phew! The holiday is finally over. Tomorrow, 3 chapters. Chapter 637. Time passed little by little. It wasn't that easy to swallow the lightning slaughter natal plate. If it weren't for the fact that Lei Meng was already dead and only left with the ownerless Lei Meng natal disc, with Lin Feng's current strength, he wouldn't have been able to devour this enormous energy object. No matter what, it was at the Star Sea level. The Phoenix natal plate was only at the Peak Star River level. If I hadn't opened the natal plate, I wouldn't have been able to merge it. Lin Feng gritted his teeth and felt lucky. The existence of the natal plate was like a force of heaven that proved the power of the Phoenix natal plate in his body and made it submit to the lightning slaughter natal plate. Otherwise, why would the lightning slaughter natal plate obediently merge with the Phoenix natal plate? It was the same in both the natural world and the human world. The strong were respected. This was a principle that would never change. However, the existence of the heavenly fate astrolabe can only deter one level at most. If the lightning slaughter really had the strength of a Star Lord, I'm afraid I would have been swallowed by it. Lin Feng thought to himself. The lightning slaughter did indeed have the strength of a Star Lord, but that was because of the spirit chi in this place. Just like these giant beasts, they were all huge but not very intelligent. They only had instinctive consciousness. The dense spirit chi could strengthen them, but it couldn't change their nature. Some things were hard to change. It should be the lightning slaughter that was born not long ago. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had such a good opportunity. Lin Feng smiled weakly. No matter what kind of divine beast it was, they were born at the Star Sea level and became a Star Lord when they were young. Although the lightning slaughter in front of him was a child, or even an adult, it was a Star Sea level beast. This could be judged from its intelligence. Huh? Lin Feng frowned. He instantly felt his body begin to change. As the Phoenix natal chart continued to match, the lightning slaughter natal chart had already merged with his golden fate astrolabe. It was the final moment. Endure it. Lin Feng clenched his fists tightly as he endured the strands of heart-wrenching pain. Lin Feng's will was abnormally firm. The state of fusion had already begun, and his body was slowly beginning to feel something. It was a feeling of becoming stronger. What a dense energy! Amazing, it is indeed the power of a divine beast. Lin Feng shivered inwardly and sighed in admiration again and again. At this moment, his body was undergoing a mutation, and even his astrolabe was shining brightly. His life soul, human soul, and body were all undergoing drastic changes. The integration of the lightning slaughter natal plate had completely improved the phoenix natal plate. After accumulating and waiting for a long time, he could finally raise his martial god and celestial spirit master to the StarCraft level. This was a qualitative change, an extreme metamorphosis. That day, when the war god level rose from Star River to Star Sea level, he had already tried it. But now it was the second and third time. Rich power poured into his body. Lin Feng was filled with joy. The feeling of pain was still there, but it was not as bad as before. His bones were constantly strengthened, and his skin became flexible and elastic at the same time. His cells were condensing and changing. Everything was progressing in an orderly manner. It doesn't seem to be a big improvement to my body, but it's better than nothing. Lin Feng thought inwardly, but he understood. It was actually very simple, because his body had become too strong. Time had changed, just like obtaining a 7-star spiritual treasure. It was very precious and powerful to him when he had just entered the Douling world, but to him now, it was of average help. But no, it's still a little different. Lin Feng looked at his body and thought. At this moment, the purest metal energy was tempering him. Although the increase in strength was almost negligible, it was a qualitative improvement, a sublimation of the foundation. Metal was firm and hard, and it was of great help to a warrior's body. And the biggest difference was meridians. Lin Feng was shocked. I didn't expect that the meridians of the martial god and the war god would be different. From the Star River level to the Star Sea level, the meridians of the martial god and the war god are more than 80% the same, but there are many meridians that the war god cannot reach. No wonder, although the martial god and the war god seem similar, their paths are completely different. Lin Feng thought inwardly and suddenly opened his eyes. His expression was filled with shock. Emperor Shun strategy. So many of the Emperor Shun strategy left for me. Lin Feng was shocked. Now that I'm cultivating the second layer, the 7th layer, if I use these newly opened meridians, the speed of the Earth energy circulation will be increased by at least half. It's equivalent to an invisible output of Earth energy, and the speed and strength will be greatly increased. Lin Feng's face broke into a smile. These changes were very small and not big, but they were real changes, the stimulation of the body's potential. It was like building a tall building. There was no difference between building 10 floors, but when building 100 or 1,000 floors, the difference would be obvious. All this time, I've tried to cultivate the 8th layer, but it's extremely difficult. Now that I've opened so many meridians, many problems are easily solved. I believe that I can comprehend it in a short time, and even the 9th layer is possible. Lin Feng clenched his fist, his expression filled with confidence. Emperor Shun strategy. Every layer has 12 layers, and 3 layers are a threshold. If one cultivates to the last 3 layers, the power of the Emperor Shun strategy is unpredictable. However, according to Duo, even his own teacher has not broken through the last 3 layers. Wait! Lin Feng was startled, and his brows raised. Teacher is a genius, but he still can't comprehend the last 3 layers. Maybe it's not because of comprehension, but because the body lacks a certain characteristic, so it's limited. For example, the meridians. Lin Feng's movements were abnormal, but the more he thought about it, the more likely it was. His own teacher, Bai Li Feng, broke through as a war god and became a Star Sea level expert, so the meridians in his body that were exclusive to the war god were not opened. Whether it's true or not, I'll know after I try. Lin Feng was full of anticipation. He really wanted to know if this was the reason. Time passed slowly. Every part of his body was undergoing a rapid transformation. My senses are getting clearer. Both the human soul and the life soul have improved greatly, especially the life soul. It has completely transformed and is finally on the same level as the human soul. Lin Feng smiled faintly, feeling the transformation of his life soul. It changed from a lone branch to a starry sky, and a huge sphere formed by the energy of heaven and earth had disappeared. However, this starry sky was filled with the energy of heaven and earth. From 1 to 1,000 to 10,000 to 10,000,000 to 1,000,000,000, countless resplendent spots of light. It was exactly the same as the transformation of the human soul that day. The only difference was that the human soul had an extremely strong astral power, which was extremely rich and powerful. The red light was as bright as the stars, and it was unparalleled. The 8th level of the astral power was not just for show. He was only 2 steps away from the 10th level of the astral power. Lin Feng's human soul was very strong now. Logically speaking, the life soul should also have original astral power. Let's try to sense it. Lin Feng thought to himself and immediately focused. He sensed the new body and the transformed human soul. He looked inside himself and connected his consciousness to the destined astrolabe and entered the life soul. The familiar feeling came again. It was like a vast void, a sea of stars. Bright starlight covered the entire life soul, like a starry sky at night. The bright spots of light were very familiar. Each of them was the convergence of the energy of heaven and earth, and they were boundless. However, there's only one place that was different in this sea of dense spiritual energy. This is it. Lin Feng looked at the bright red spots of light in front of him. So big, so bright. Lin Feng was shocked. He knew the original astral power very well. The original astral power in the human soul had been improved step by step. However, the original astral power in front of him was more than 1,000 times stronger than before. 3rd level. Lin Feng was shocked again. The feeling was too clear. It was as if he could touch it if he reached out. Compared to the first time he touched the original astral power in the human soul, the resistance and reluctance he felt now was real. It was as if it was a part of his body. This feeling was not comparable to the original astral power in the human soul. Even though he had reached the 8th level of astral control, the difference was still huge. One was control. The other was a part of his body. How could it be compared? Although it's only the 3rd level, its strength and intensity are comparable to the original astral power in the human soul. The most important thing is that I should be able to control it completely. Lin Feng opened his eyes with a swoosh sound. He had a strange feeling in his heart. In terms of astral control, he had already reached the 9th or even 10th level. However, the surprise did not stop. Whoosh! The original astral power shone brightly. Lin Feng opened his eyes wide. A dazzling phoenix appeared in his mind. It was a huge phoenix, surrounded by the fire of devouring and the fire of rebirth. It spread its wings and let out a loud cry. The sound entered his ears. The dense astral power made his heart tremble. He could vaguely see 7 light spots on the phoenix's body. They were very similar to his phoenix natal chart. It's so close. The feeling is so deep. It's so intimate. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. At this moment, he was beyond shocked. He did not need to enter the state of enlightenment, nor did he need to use the star fusion art or the wooden staff as a bridge. It was as if he was in the starry sky, right next to the phoenix. The heart of light shone, producing a huge suction force. An endless stream of astral power surrounded this fiery red existence and gathered crazily. The ball of astral power formed by the fiery red ball of light was full of power and mystery. It could cultivate and grow on its own without needing him to do anything. Not only that, the speed of absorbing astral power was much faster than the cultivation of the ball of astral power in the human soul. It was too powerful. This was the natal chart of the phoenix. 2 more chapters. Chapter 638. 2 astral powers, 2 versions of myself. If I use the secret doppelganger, my strength will double. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He was overjoyed. If the two versions of himself worked together, their strength would not be as simple as 1 + 1 = 2, but only if I have to improve my celestial spirit master level. I can slow down the devouring fire, but I have to speed up the fire of rebirth as soon as possible. Lin Feng thought to himself. He understood. With the improvement of the Phoenix natal chart, his martial god and celestial spirit master had both reached the starseed level. However, the life soul controlled the fire of rebirth, and the human soul controlled the devouring fire. The strength of a celestial spirit master and a martial god were not the same. It was possible to cultivate them at the same time, but the martial god in his human soul state was already powerful enough. He had to save as much time as possible when he needed combat power the most. Therefore, cultivating the fire of rebirth to increase his strength as a celestial spirit master was the right way to go. As for the devouring fire, it would not be too late to cultivate it after it stabilized and there were no more worries. It's just a bit strange. When a celestial spirit master reaches the star sea level, the original astral power will appear in his life soul. This is the sign of the star sea level. When a martial god reaches the star sea level, his human soul does not change much. Is it because the martial god and celestial spirit master are both controlled by the Phoenix natal chart? Or is it because the original astral power already exists in my human soul? Lin Feng frowned as he thought to himself. Two tigers cannot live on one mountain. If there are two original astral powers, my human soul will be in a mess. Lin Feng smiled faintly and shook his head. The power of an ancient warrior is also only one astral power. So, the direction of my cultivation should be the same. After going through the ancient warrior trial, Lin Feng already knew a lot about it. However, I am an ancient warrior and a celestial spirit master, which is very rare. In a battle, I will definitely be able to confuse the enemy. I will be able to unleash extremely powerful combat power. Lin Feng smiled, quite satisfied with his transformation this time. His strength had increased in all aspects. He would no longer be restricted by the martial god. Especially with the development of the fire spirit masters, it made up for war god's weakness in group battles. Just like that day in the Sky Martial Continent, when he was fighting against hundreds of millions of beasts, facing countless enemies in the 100 waterfalls, only with the strength of a powerful fire spirit master could he suppress them. The transformation was complete. The fusion seemed to be coming to an end. As the Phoenix natal plate brightened, the second golden fate plate below the heavenly fate plate shone brightly. Lin Feng's mind was suddenly blown. He saw Lei Ming's appearance in the golden fate astrolabe. He was baring his fangs and brandishing his claws, but in the blink of an eye, he turned into a gray bubble. In an instant, strange words appeared in his mind, and he seemed to be able to understand them. Suddenly, the golden fate astrolabe turned into Lei Ming's appearance. Then, it returned to its original appearance. How strange. This is... Lin Feng was shocked. He memorized these words in his heart. It was like a mantra, but it also seemed like a unique secret technique. It was a familiar feeling, as if it was related to the golden fate astrolabe. Closing his eyes, Lin Feng calmed down and recited the mantra. In an instant, the golden fate astrolabe shone brightly. A strong gold elemental energy was released from the golden fate astrolabe, flowing through all the meridians in his body. Lin Feng opened his eyes, his heart trembling violently. Pata! Crack! His skin became tough and his muscles swelled. His arms became thicker, his legs became stronger, and sharp spikes appeared on his back. The thunder halo gathered and condensed into a faint golden light. Lin Feng's whole body seemed to be covered with a layer of armor, looking very mighty. The most obvious change was the golden horn on his head, which was condensed with the power of lightning. His body grew to 2 meters. His strength and defense had increased greatly, especially the gold elemental energy, which increased the strength of his body by a large margin. Amazing to amazing. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. His body was covered with a layer of scales, which was very similar to Lei Ming's. However, his consciousness was still intact, and he could control his body freely. This was just a burst of energy which did not affect his body. Boom! He punched the armor in front of his chest, making a sonorous sound. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. His hands lit up with flames, but his strength was not affected at all. This armor provided him with the greatest defense and increased his strength. Let's call it Lei Ming armor. Lin Feng smiled faintly. Just as he was feeling happy, suddenly, boom! His head shook slightly, and a familiar pressure appeared. The third trial, extermination, has ended. The trial taker has assimilated the divine beast Lei Ming and entered the fourth trial, Beast King. Replace Lei Ming and become the king of beasts. The time limit is 300 days. The voice was calm, but there was no doubt in it. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, but he was shocked. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. The fourth trial required him to become the Beast King. How could he, a human, do it? Since this is the fourth trial, it must be possible to complete it. Wait, could it be that my mutation and the possession of the Lei Ming armor is related to this? With the aura of Lei Ming, even if I am a human, those giant beasts do not have intelligence. They can only sense the aura of Lei Ming. But if that's the case, didn't Lei Ming subdue all the beasts just now? Lin Feng thought to himself as he sank into deep thought. There must be something strange about this. 300 days, exactly the same as the second trial. No hurry, one step at a time. Lin Feng nodded and stood up. Although he had benefited a lot, he was still in the Purple Star realm and was not out of danger. He had to be careful. Outside the Yanling royal residence, there was complete silence. Everyone was stunned. 3695569. Am I seeing things? A warrior rubbed his eyes hard. 3,690,000. One of the burly men opened his mouth and slapped himself fiercely. The sound of the slap was painful. He shouted, "No, it's not a dream. Oh my God." Following the burly man's exclamation, everyone came back to their senses and started a heated discussion. Damn, is it true? It's more than 3 million. This Lin Feng really amazes the world with a single brilliant feat. Isn't he too abnormal? He left the second place, Ru Ming, behind by more than 2 million. Who is this Lin Feng? Everyone was whispering to each other, trying to find out the origin of this Lin Feng. The first time could be due to luck, the second time could also be due to luck, but the third time, the entire third time, it could no longer be due to luck. To be able to obtain more than 3 million points, it was rare to find someone in the entire Yanling royal residence. It could be said that he was already at the top of this year's rankings. Lin Feng's position in the rankings was refreshed. With 3695569 points, he was ranked third after the strongest person in the Yanling royal residence, Wan Macho, and the super genius of the Chiyu Palace, Qianjun. It refreshed the highest score of a fierce Yin sect disciple in the past 100 years, 178 million points. It had increased by more than 2 times. The most important thing was that Lin Feng's points could still increase. At this time, not even half of the 1,000 days in the fourth heaven had passed. He's really a monster. Ji Xia smiled bitterly and shook his head. We actually formed a team with a monster. Yi sighed and felt that it was unbelievable. Lin Feng's sudden rise made fierce Yin school, which had sunk into sadness and silence, suddenly become lively. Even the great elder showed a gratified smile. The worry in the corner of his eyes lessened. Many of the guardians and leaders were talking about Lin Feng enthusiastically, talking about what they knew about the competition in the 9th district. There was no doubt that Lin Feng was really famous. Even if his points didn't rise, it was enough for him to be recorded in the history of Fierce Yin Sect. Even in the 10,000 years rankings, Lin Feng was in the top 50. The 3 rankings were in full force. It had been a long time since Fierce Yin Sect had such a great reputation. Indeed, it had been quiet for too long. Do you think Lin Feng can break through again? It's hard to say. There's still so much time. I think one clan leader's 4. 75 million points on the 110,000 years rankings is a little difficult. I think so too. This Lin Feng really has an unfathomable power. Everyone was discussing fervently. All of them were shocked by Lin Feng's amazing skills. They were fence-sitters. Not long ago, they were disdainful of Lin Feng, but now they were full of admiration. Outside the Yinling royal residence, there were praises. However, the martial artists of the Yinling royal residence were livid and furious. Bullsh *T. If that Lin Feng can surpass the Patriarch's record, then I, Wan Jinghun, will write my name backwards. A furious roar rang out. The eyes of the man shrouded in black were bright, but they were filled with rage. Wan Macho was not only his master, but also the pride of the Yinling royal residence. Any disrespect or insult was equivalent to provoking him, the strongest heavenly soul master in the Yinling royal residence. That's right, that Lin Feng is nothing. A trash newcomer, bah. How dare he compare with our clan leader? Boom. The rest of the martial artists of the Yinling royal residence stepped forward, their eyes cold. Their aura was vigorous and dispersed. In a split second, everyone was shocked. They glanced over but didn't dare to say anything. Not everyone could afford to offend the Yinling royal residence, and the martial artists weren't fools to offend them. Only, then you better be prepared to write your name upside down. Shun Jingwan. The great elder sneered with a faint smile. Others were afraid of getting involved, but he wasn't. Anyone who insulted the disciples of Fierce Yin's sect was insulting him. That's right, look at all of you. You're all guilty. Haha, what top expert of the Yinling royal residence? You won't be able to keep your position. And that Wan Gu, isn't he the genius of the Yinling royal residence? Where is he? Where is he? The people of Fierce Yin's sect fought back with words. In terms of numbers, the disciples of Fierce Yin's sect far outnumbered the Yinling royal residence. The two forces were not on good terms. Not to mention a war of words. Even a real battle would erupt from time to time, not to mention a war of words. The people of the Yinling royal residence were livid, but their mouths couldn't compare to the number of people of Fierce Yin's sect. Wan Jinghun stared at the great elder coldly. A cold light shot out from his eyes, and he waved his hand angrily. Humph, let's go. Then, he disappeared amidst the laughter of the people of Fierce Yin's sect. Chapter 639. Phew, my cultivation speed is so fast. Standing on a rock wall, Lin Feng's eyes were burning. Although he wasn't deliberately cultivating at this moment, the heavenly fate star plate was absorbing a dense amount of astral energy and was constantly improving. The increase in astral power brought rich energy of heaven and earth, and even his life spirit was constantly strengthening. It was killing two birds with one stone. The power of a divine beast and the destined star plate are indeed extraordinary. The improvement of a celestial spirit master's strength is much faster than that of a battle god. It's true that one's aptitude is one's cultivation speed. Lin Feng thought to himself. After fusing with the phoenix blood and possessing the phoenix natal plate, his aptitude as a celestial spirit master and martial god was indeed incomparable to that of a battle god. The difference between the two was more than one level. However, it's also related to the environment here. With such rich and dense spirit chi, how can the cultivation speed be compared to the outside world? The fourth test has 300 days. If I can take half or even 1/3 of the time, my strength will be greatly improved. Lin Feng thought to himself, but he didn't dare to be too careless. The Purple Star Realm was not a joke. If he couldn't pass the test, what was the use of his cultivation strength? It would be a wasted effort. Only when he was 100% confident, like the second test, could he use his time wisely. Improve his strength. However, although I can't cultivate 100%, I can at least find some time. Lin Feng smiled faintly. Instantly, his eyes changed greatly. He suddenly shouted, "Secret clone!" His figure became mysterious and blurred. Then, he split into two, and two Lin Feng appeared. Now that the secret clone has reached the star sea level, it has a certain strength. The main body absorbs this star crystal for cultivation, and the secret clone detects. Lin Feng nodded. A flame appeared in the secret clone's hand. With a wisp of astral power, it blasted a big hole in the rock wall in an instant. The hole in the huge rock wall was in the air, and the giant beasts in the canyon couldn't climb it. Most importantly, there was a small area of mud and stone below the rock wall. With the protection of the wings, he could sleep peacefully. Whoosh! The main body Lin Feng immediately entered and focused on cultivation. In the canyon, Lin Feng walked cautiously. Even though it was just a secret clone, it was still controlled by his consciousness, so there was not much difference. This canyon is very big. Let's try to find those giant beasts first. Let's see how they react to me. Lin Feng thought to himself, his thoughts clear. While it seemed easy for Xiao Chun to become the king of 10,000 beasts, it was actually very difficult. He had no clue at all. He could only put it into practice bit by bit and accumulate experience. Fortunately, he had 300 days, which was enough. The astral power kept being absorbed, strengthening the ball of astral power in his life spirit. Even if he did not take the initiative to cultivate, his cultivation speed was still very impressive. Lin Feng could only sigh inwardly. He recalled the difficulties he faced when he was cultivating the human spirit astral ball. Now, he was like a shooting star, and his cultivation speed was extremely fast. In less than a day, the celestial spirit master star will reach the 4th level. In terms of the strength of the star force sphere, it is definitely comparable to the 5th layer of the war god stage. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. His cultivation speed as a sky spirit master was much faster than the war god. The upper limit of his strength was also much higher, although there was only a difference of 1 level. After a star sea level existence reached the 7th level, the difference between each level was huge. The airflow here is very messy. The footprints are uneven. They should be close. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled as he carefully searched for the giant beasts that were chasing him just now. It was not difficult to find them if he followed the original path. Bit by bit, he was getting closer. Soon got it. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Now, the range of his life spirit's aura had increased by several times. The sensitivity of a divine beast to the environment was naturally incomparable to that of a human. With the Phoenix life plate, Lin Feng's life spirit was better than a star sea level human spirit when it was still at the Star River level. Now, it was even better than a human spirit. Even without looking, he could clearly sense the giant beasts in groups of 3 to 5 resting not far away. The 3rd level is over. The 2-hour time limit is up. They won't chase after me anymore. It would be troublesome if they gathered together. Now is the time. Let's give it a try. Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he slowly flew forward. Suddenly, a hoarse roar filled the air. It carried a hint of warning. They didn't chase after me. They really forgot about me. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and the corners of his mouth curled up. This proved that these giant beasts only had instinctive reactions and did not have intelligence. There are a total of 18 giant beasts around here. I can easily defeat the strongest one. There's no need to worry. As soon as he thought of this, Lin Feng moved like a sharp arrow, instantly stepping onto the stone wall. The appearance of the 18 giant beasts gradually became clearer. At this moment, they were roaring angrily, and all of them were looking at him with vigilance and hostility. They were quite xenophobic. Come! Lin Feng's eyes lit up. The flame of rebirth gathered in his hands. The originally bright flame was ferocious with a touch of bright red light. His star power poured out to the limit, emitting a fiery glow. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He felt that the star power was different. It seemed to contain a power that he didn't know, but it made the flame of rebirth extremely dazzling, as if it was full of vitality. Go! Lin Feng shouted. However, he didn't think too much. His hands shot out 2 flame of rebirth at an extremely fast speed. However, although the giant beasts were clumsy, they weren't stupid. Seeing the fireballs, They roared and hurried to dodge. "Can you dodge?" Lin Feng faintly curled the corners of his mouth. His star power gathered in the fireballs as if they were his hands controlling them. Swoosh! Swoosh! The moment the two fireballs landed on the ground, they quickly turned, not affected by the powerful energy at all. With an almost impossible speed, they shot toward the two giant beasts that were the slowest to dodge. Boom! Boom! The two huge beasts were turned into ashes in a split second, leaving not even a drop of ash behind. Roar! 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 Furious roars mixed with a touch of hoarseness and fear. The remaining 16 giant beasts were all roaring madly. In fact, they weren't the only ones who were shocked. Lin Feng was also very surprised. Why is it so powerful? Even with the enhancement of the star power, the amount of star power infused is not much. Moreover, my flame of rebirth didn't improve at all. What's going on? Lin Feng frowned. He was doubtful about his own power. His control of the star power was not unexpected. It was as he thought, and he could control it freely. However, the power was beyond his expectations. Could it be? Is it the strange energy I felt just now? Is it the existence that Master said I can feel when my star power reaches the 9th grade? Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He was pondering in his heart. At this moment, there was a loud crash. The giant beast crashed into the rock wall he was on, causing the mountain to shake. The rock wall could not withstand such a crash. Large pieces of rock fell and almost collapsed. Lin Feng hovered in the air. Instantly, he felt a strong suction force from below. Not only that, 2 light bombs shot out, one from the left and one from the right. The 16 giant beasts attacked. Let's try again. Lin Feng's eyes shone with a bright light. He changed his original plan. He nimbly dodged the 2 light bombs and condensed 2 clusters of flame of rebirth in his hands. As the star power infused into them, the powerful force seemed to be the essence of the star power. It gave life to the 2 clusters of flame of rebirth and condensed them into 2 fireballs. He could control it as he wished. Go! Lin Feng shouted coldly. The 2 fireballs shot toward the 2 giant beasts that shot the light bombs at him. Any threat must be eliminated as soon as possible. Boom! Boom! After 2 consecutive explosions, the 2 giant beasts turned into nothingness. They're stronger than the 2 giant beasts just now, but they can't stop my fireballs either, Lin Feng thought to himself. He was even more aware of the power of his rebirth fireball. His strength was now a mystery. At this moment, the giant beasts' roars were even more shrill, but they were less confident. With Lin Feng's repeated attacks, only 8 of the 18 giant beasts were left in the blink of an eye. They had almost no ability to attack the air. They roared furiously, but they could do nothing to Lin Feng. They were so anxious that they wanted to tear Lin Feng into pieces. Almost there. If I kill them again, they will probably run away. Lin Feng muttered to himself. Suddenly, his eyes flickered. Oh, he sensed that the star power of his life spirit was rapidly recovering. Almost half of the star power of the 4th level had been consumed, but now it had recovered a lot in such a short time. For a Star Sea level warrior, the most troublesome thing is to use up all the star power. It's like cutting off one's own arm. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. But my star power is not absorbed by the sky, but by the destined star plate. The speed is extremely fast, and the recovery is amazing. At that time, as the number of stars increases, the recovery will also increase rapidly. No matter how many enemies there are, as long as the star power recovered is more than the consumption, I have nothing to fear. Secretly happy, Lin Feng nodded. This surprising discovery was very beneficial to him, but now was not the time to think about it. Instead, staring at the 8 giant beasts, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Let's try them. Combine. His body blurred, and the 2 Lin Feng suddenly merged. In an instant, Lin Feng shouted. The destined star plate shone, and his body changed in an instant. As his body expanded, Lin Feng's expression became ferocious and fierce, and his aura slowly changed. His skin became tough, his limbs became incomparably strong, and his scales grew. The most frightening thing was the barbs on his back, which were full of cold light. The golden horn on his head condensed the power of lightning. Lin Feng's body grew to 2 meters, and his whole body was covered with a thick layer of scales. Thunder slaughter armor. Boom! Lin Feng's eyes lit up. At this time, his aura had completely changed, and he was comparable to the Thunder Slaughter armor. Like a human-shaped giant beast, his terrifying figure was full of strong, domineering aura. Chapter 640. However, the remaining 8 giant beasts continued to roar. Roar! Lu! Breathing out of their nostrils, the giant beasts roared angrily, their emotions extremely irritable. Lin Feng's eyes deepened, his heart trembling. These 8 giant beasts were the ones that submitted to Lei Meng just now. But now, not only do they not have the slightest intention of submitting, they don't even have the slightest fear. This is too unusual. Lin Feng thought to himself, puzzled. His aura was now no different from Lei Meng's, but it had no effect at all. The 4th test is indeed not that simple. No matter what, I should test the giant beast reactions and the power of the Thunder Slaughter armor first, then I'll make plans. In an instant, Lin Feng's eyes shone with a cold light. His body fell like a meteor, accompanied by a fierce aura. 2 incomparably tough flames condensed in his hands, covering his scaled fists. Boom! A black mist appeared. Although his body was covered by the Thunder Slaughter armor, it did not affect his movements. Even his spirit treasures and soul weapons were normal. The Thunder Slaughter armor, like the spirit treasures, was an additional existence. Boom! He punched out. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. My fist speed has doubled. Thick flames, with red light entwined with star power, broke through the dawn. The violent force blasted towards the giant beast that weighed thousands of tons. Facing such a powerful existence, Lin Feng did not show any signs of weakness. With just a pair of fists and the power of flames, he forcefully defeated the beast. It's hard to estimate the increase in strength. It's at least 4 times, no, 5 times. Lin Feng's head trembled, but his movements were not slow at all. With another punch, the giant beast's head was burned to pieces by the violent flames. With just 2 punches, one broke through the beast's defense, the other killed it. The current Lin Feng's martial god strength was just as strong. At this moment, behind him, a giant rhinoceros-like beast swooped down with a rumbling sound. Its aura was extremely powerful. Flame Dragon Shield. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, but he didn't dodge. This giant beast's strength was far inferior to his own, and it was a good opportunity to test the defensive power of the Thunder Slaughter armor. The Flame Dragon Shield, condensed from the Flame of Rebirth, was even more powerful. Originally, the Flame of Rebirth was an existence that mainly focused on defense. Now, it was making the best use of it. Bang! With a violent collision, the huge body crashed into Lin Feng like an elephant crashing into an ant. However, the result was not so. Bang! Almost instantly, the flame dragon roared and spat out. Devouring fire. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. The strongest display of the flame dragon shield was the condensation of 2 types of flames. Using the flame of rebirth as defense and the flame of devouring as attack. This was the true strength of the Flame Dragon Shield. Both offense and defense. Dawn! Lin Feng's eyes flashed, and he staggered slightly. Although most of the impact was blocked by the Flame Dragon Shield, a small part of it was still absorbed by his body. However, with the Thunder Slaughter armor, the defensive power of his body was astonishing. Especially on his back, the Thunder Slaughter armor had not only fused with his body, but also had barbs that condensed strong metal elemental energy, blocking all of the impact. The remaining power couldn't even break through those barbs and hurt his body. It was just a little bit of impact. Let's not talk about the defensive power of these barbs for now. Just the defensive power of my body alone has increased by more than 2 times. Lin Feng thought to himself. He already understood. The power of the Thunder Slaughter armor was far beyond his expectations. Excluding speed, every part of my body has increased significantly. This Thunder Slaughter armor greatly enhances my God of War state. Curling his lips into a faint smile, Lin Feng acted quickly. In the blink of an eye, his fists emitted sparks, and 2 more giant beasts died tragically in a sea of intense flames. The remaining 4 giant beasts attacked Lin Feng crazily. However, they were like moths flying into a flame. Their attacks had no effect at all. In a short 10 seconds, 8 giant beasts died tragically. Wearing the Thunder Slaughter armor, Lin Feng's body was surrounded by a faint golden light, and he was unharmed. After advancing to the Martial God and Celestial Spirit Master, Lin Feng no longer had any weaknesses. His long-range and close-range attacks had all increased dramatically. Whoosh! Lin Feng's eyes flashed. The Thunder Slaughter armor, however, left as quickly as it came. After returning to his normal state, Lin Feng looked around with shining eyes and shook his head helplessly. Killing these giant beasts was of no help to him now. What he needed to do was to become the king of beasts. As expected, the 4th trial is not that easy. Not only have these beasts forgotten about me, they've also forgotten about Lei Ming. There's no trace of him at all. Do I have to subdue them again? Lin Feng frowned as he recalled the scene when he first entered the canyon. Tens of thousands of giant beasts had chased after the divine beast, the Thunder Slaughter armor. At that time, the Thunder Slaughter armor had been badly injured. If it hadn't become stronger than a Star Lord in a short time and killed countless giant beasts as an example, it would have died without a burial place. I'm not even as strong as the Thunder Slaughter armor before it went berserk. Not to mention, I can't compare to it when it went berserk. Many of the giant beasts that chased after Lei Ming that day possessed the aura of giant beasts, and their strength was no less than mine. Lin Feng's heart trembled as he vaguely understood something. Now that he thought about it carefully, it wasn't that difficult to complete the 4th trial. All in all, it could be summarized in one sentence: become stronger. If he became as strong as the Thunder Slaughter armor before it went berserk, he would be able to intimidate the giant beasts again and become the king of beasts. After thinking clearly, Lin Feng's expression changed from grave to enlightened. No wonder there's a 300-day time limit. They want me to make good use of this time to become strong enough. But if I want to become as strong as the Thunder Slaughter when it went berserk, it's almost impossible. Lin Feng heaved a sigh, but he knew his limits. The Thunder Slaughter armor, when it went berserk, would be far stronger than he could reach, unless he became a Star Lord. But that was impossible. I can only observe as I go. I can't be sure because I haven't practiced enough. Lin Feng nodded with a burning gaze. Let's try again. 10 days later. No. Lin Feng shook his head. There was blood all around him, and the remains of giant beasts were scattered all over the ground. Even though my life soul has reached the 5th level, it's easy to kill, but intimidating is difficult. To become the king of beasts, as the name suggests, I have to subdue all the beasts and make them willingly respect me as their king. Just like the Thunder Slaughter when it went berserk, I had to subdue all the beasts with my unparalleled strength and make them unable to resist. Intimidating and killing are 2 completely different things. Lin Feng heaved a sigh. After 10 days of killing, he had completely understood. In nature, the strong were respected, especially those giant beasts that hadn't developed intelligence. They only understood one thing: strength was the only thing that mattered. I don't need to waste any more energy. I need to use the remaining 290 days to make myself as strong as possible. Only then can I intimidate all the giant beasts and become the king of beasts. Lin Feng's eyes glittered. There was no doubt in his mind anymore. There was no other path to take. My original body is strong enough as a war god. 290 days isn't a long time, but it's not short either. Even if I try my best, I'm afraid I won't be able to reach the next level in terms of strength and star levels. My only hope lies in the newly advanced Phoenix natal chart. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He was clear in his heart. He knew that his aptitude as a war god and a celestial spirit master was far greater than that of a war god. The most important thing is to improve the fire of rebirth. If it's far away, I'll use the strength of a celestial spirit master to greatly improve my ability in group battles. If it's close, I'll attach it to the Nightmare Demon Spear to enhance my absolute attack power. It's killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Moreover, the Fire of Heaven is good at defense, and it's perfectly applied to the Shield of Flame Dragon. It's the most comprehensive improvement to my strength, which is incomparable to the Fire of Devouring. After a few days of practice, testing, and thinking again and again, Lin Feng was now completely sure that the path he was taking was the most direct, the most effective, and, at the same time, the path with the highest success rate. Previously, the Fire of Rebirth's improvement speed was slow, but now the bottleneck is gone. During this period, apart from the improvement of the star levels of my original body and secret doppelganger, the Fire of Rebirth will definitely have an earth-shaking change. I want to return to the destined star chart, to the place where the phoenixes gather and cultivate again, the phoenix realm of the polar road. Muttering in his heart, Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. This was his only hope. Yinling Royal Residence. Senior brother, we haven't seen the disciples of Fierce Yin School for a long time, one Mo said with cupped fists. Because of Wan Dry Bone's death, Wan Mo, who was originally a subordinate of Wan Gu, was promoted to vice captain. Although he was not as strong as Wan Dry Bone, Wan Mo was cautious and attentive, and he was Wan Gu's junior brother and trusted aide. He was extremely loyal and followed Wan Gu's lead. They're hiding in Cloud Realm. Wan Gu put his hands behind his back, his expression calm. Wan Dry Bone can't do anything right. He's only acting rashly and alerting the enemy. For the time being, those cowards from Fierce Yin School won't come out. Then what about the mission given by the Patriarch himself? Wan Mo said hesitantly. Don't worry. Wan Gu's eyes sparkled. They won't be able to hide for long. Soon, the biggest difference between a sect and a family will be revealed. Senior brother, what do you mean? Wan Mo said softly, as if he understood something. Wan Gu smiled faintly, his eyes shining with killing intent. He said coldly, we only need to wait patiently for the last 100 days of the 4th heaven. At that time, I'll arrange the most luxurious banquet for those cowards from Fierce Yin School and let them enjoy it. Wan Gu's eyes were deep and bright. He clenched his fists, and a surging aura immediately poured out of him. It was an extremely terrifying and powerful killing intent. It was shocking. Chapter 641. Sun Fate Astrolabe. Lin Feng closed his eyes. Sensing the bright phoenix Fate Astrolabe in his body, Lin Feng felt very warm, as if he had returned to his hometown and returned to his mother's embrace. An inexplicable feeling filled his heart. Lin Feng's eyes were filled with darkness, but in an instant, boom, his head shook. Lin Feng was immersed in it, and the light in front of him was dazzling. The familiar feeling came again. I'm back. The corner of Lin Feng's mouth curved upwards. He entered it again. In front of him was a huge super fire hole, and around this super fire hole were many small fire holes. Dense fire elemental energy filled the entire space, causing his heart to jump with joy. When he returned to his old place, regardless of whether it was his state of mind or feeling, it was completely different. I feel clearer and closer. Is it because my Phoenix Fate Astrolabe has improved and my strength has increased? Lin Feng muttered to himself, feeling a pang of fear in his heart. There was a sense of intimacy and comfort, as if he had returned to his home. Star Sea level is indeed different from Star River level. Lin Feng nodded slowly. Instantly, a flame-shaped red jade appeared in his hand. There was a soaring phoenix engraved on it. It was covered in dense flames and was about to soar into the sky. It was the keepsake that the senior of the ancient Wu Feng clan had given him. I wonder when I will have the chance to meet that senior again. If I'm not wrong, The ancient Wu Feng clan should be an existence of the ancient clan. Lin Feng's eyes were shining. He understood. Compared to when he had just entered the Douling world, he was much more experienced. No wonder that senior invited me to join the ancient Wu Feng clan. Obviously, he already knew that I have the bloodline of the ancient clan. That day, the patriarch of the Black Blade clan mentioned that I have the body of the Black Phoenix and belong to the branch of the Black Phoenix ancient clan. There seems to be a certain connection between the two. After thinking for a while, Lin Feng understood a lot. With how xenophobic the ancient clan was, why would the senior of the ancient Wu Feng clan invite him to join if he did not possess the ancient bloodline? Moreover, the ancient clan was similar to the shaman clan in that they both had their own beliefs. The ancient Wu clan and himself definitely had a considerable connection with the divine beast, the phoenix. Many secrets would be revealed one by one as he grew stronger. There was no need to worry. The most important thing right now was increase his strength. Enter. Let the cultivation begin. Lin Feng's eyes emitted a scorching light as he stepped inside. Trapped in the endless void, there was chaos in front of him, and the endless starry sky decorated the horizon. They were densely packed, like a compass made of starlight, innumerable. The scene in front of him couldn't be clearer and more familiar. Every time he entered, he would feel it deeply. Lin Feng was even very clear that in the next moment, the phoenix that had deeply shocked him would appear. It coiled around the flames of devouring and rebirth, and its cries shook the world as its divine might abruptly erupted. However, it was different this time. It was an extremely bright phoenix, and it suddenly appeared with a monstrous aura. However, as it let out a clear cry, the entire scene around him changed rapidly. Lin Feng was stunned. It was a strange change that he had never seen before, and it made him extremely surprised. It was as if he had entered a new world. The bright phoenix turned into specks of light and disappeared, leaving behind 7 bright specks of light. From the head to the tail of the phoenix, they formed the entire spine of the phoenix, as if they were the backbone of the phoenix. The 7 specks of light, regardless of position, direction, distance, they were exactly the same as the phoenix natal chart. The only difference was that at this moment, the 7 specks of light were emitting bright light. They were getting closer and closer, and it was as if he was moving. The 7 specks of light were right in front of him. What a similar scene. It seems very similar to the time when I met the god of war. Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he muttered to himself. The last time he saw it, it was not a phoenix, but a huge demonic beast. There were also 7 specks of light, but there was only 1 speck of light shining. Most importantly, what he saw back then was not as clear as what he saw now. The phoenix in front of him and every speck of light seemed to be within his reach. This energy aura, it's so familiar. Feeling the 7 specks of light approaching him, Lin Feng's eyes suddenly lit up. Somehow, he felt an abnormal heartbeat, and somehow, he felt a strong power. It's the power that I have when I control the star power of my life spirit. It's the presence that I feel when I use the 9th level of star control. That's it. Lin Feng clenched his fist, and his eyes shone brightly. Although there were differences in the energy of the 7 light spots, no matter which light spot it was, the energy that was transmitted was exactly the same as the energy that was infused into him when he controlled the star power of his life spirit. It was as if they were of the same origin. This is the real star power. It's not the power of the galaxy, but the power of the constellation. Master once said that if I can sense the power of the constellation I belong to and completely possess it, it means that my star control has reached the 10th level. Combined with the 10th level of the constellation, fusion and transformation, I'm 1 step away from the Star Lord level. Lin Feng's eyes glittered, and his heart was jumping with joy. He didn't expect that he would be able to sense the power of the constellation so quickly. It was the star power that belonged to him. Master said that many warriors are stuck at the 8th level of star control, and it's impossible for them to sense the power for the rest of their lives. But now, not only can I sense it clearly, but I can also grasp it easily, and even... Pa! Lin Feng wanted to reach out and touch the specks of light, but he encountered a strong resistance. It wasn't the power of the battle spirit world, but a kind of heavenly power. He was shut out. I can see it, but I can't touch it. That's weird. Lin Feng frowned. His eyes glittered, and he reached out his hand again. However, the same enormous resistance appeared once again. It was as if there was an invisible wall of light blocking him outside the door. It seemed close, but it was actually far away. In front of his eyes, the 7 specks of light became brighter and brighter. Lin Feng felt touched from the bottom of his heart, as if there was something in the 7 specks of light that made his heart tremble. It was power, an extremely powerful energy, and a gift from the heavens. Whoosh! The light was dazzling. However, the energy disappeared in an instant. The 7 specks of light became huge, hazy, and illusory. The scene had completely changed. Countless small dots appeared in front of Lin Feng. As he got closer and closer, it was as if a distant object was slowly appearing. The small dots became bigger and bigger, expanding like balloons. The size of the dots was so huge that it was dazzling. An extremely familiar feeling appeared in front of his eyes. It was a huge burning fireball, which felt extremely small in this endless starry sky. Compared to the other fireballs around, it was like a sandstone. However, it also had great power. Fire astral form. As expected, my fire astral form has changed again. It's bigger, brighter, and has more energy. It's 10 times bigger and 10 times denser than the galaxy level. Although it's still incomparable to the other astral forms, it's already a huge improvement. Lin Feng smiled indifferently, feeling satisfied. Now that he had reached the galaxy level as a celestial spirit master, his life spirit and the flame of rebirth had both reached the galaxy level. Even the fire astral form had improved. This fire astral form, formed by the flame of rebirth, was a world that completely belonged to him. The space in his body, it was unique to the young fate astrolabe. It was like his own backyard. No matter how much flame of rebirth was needed, it was inexhaustible. As long as the flame of rebirth's energy intensity increases, as long as my celestial spirit master strength increases, when I use the heavenly dog swallows the sun, I won't be afraid no matter how many enemies there are. With his eyes shining, Lin Feng's lips curled into a faint smile. When he swallowed the small celestial dog, the biggest benefit was that he had learned its innate secret skill. It was a great weapon in group battles. It was also an extremely powerful trump card of his. At this time, in the Purple Star Realm, even if he didn't actively cultivate, the spirit chi would crazily surge into his body, increasing the number of stars and increasing his strength. 290 days might not be much in the outside world, but in here, however, it could greatly increase his strength. A complete transformation. At the same time, I can temper the flame of rebirth in my body in the Yang Fate astrolabe. Advancing together, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. While he was thinking, the scene in front of him suddenly changed. Like a fleeting cloud, it disappeared. I'm finally here. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. He had already arrived at a familiar place. This was the real Phoenix realm of the Extreme Road. It was a cultivation holy land to improve the flame of rebirth and the flame of devouring. Extremely surging flames appeared in the surroundings, and the red light suddenly flickered. In this magical space, the flames were abnormally active, strong, and vigorous. It was incomparable to the first time he entered the Phoenix realm of the Extreme Road. Lin Feng heard the language of the Phoenix clan that he didn't understand. His eyes sparkled as he looked forward. The flame passages bloomed with ferocious colors. The flame of rebirth in his body had already condensed and was surging around his body. In front of him, 10 almost identical passages appeared. 4 were dim, and 6 were bright. The auras of each passage were different. This time, the choices are much bigger. Lin Feng smiled slightly. Different passageways meant different cultivation methods. It was not the first time he had entered. Compared to when he entered, there were only 3 choices. Now, there are twice as many. The stronger the aura, the more difficult it is, and the more painful it is to cultivate. But the effect is also better. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. He was already very familiar with it. Staring at the 6 bright flame passages in front of him, Lin Feng's mouth curved slightly. Then, without hesitation, he walked to the last passage. The flame passage burned the deepest, the fiercest, and the most terrifying and powerful aura. What I want is the real tempering, the greatest improvement. I don't have time to waste. His back view was faint. Lin Feng's figure disappeared in an instant. The flame followed him, bringing with it a sense of determination. 2 more chapters. Chapter 642. Bang! The moment he entered, Lin Feng's eyes widened rapidly. An abnormally terrifying flame aura. He felt as if he was trapped in a furnace, and every inch of his skin felt like it was being roasted. The astonishing fire element entered his body at an extremely terrifying speed. Lin Feng's entire body seemed to be convulsing, and his body trembled violently, as if he was about to be burned to ashes. In an instant, the flame of rebirth came into contact with the fire element, and violently fused. The sizzling sound was abnormally ear-piercing. Lin Feng clenched his teeth, and his face was distorted. This is only my consciousness. Even if the fire burns my body, it's just pain. It's not real. The intense burning followed his heart, but Lin Feng's consciousness was still clear. He had experienced this kind of pain and torture more than once or twice. Since he could endure it with his willpower before, he could do it again this time. Clenching his fists, Lin Feng's eyes were filled with stubbornness. Since it was a path he had chosen, he would walk it to the end without any regrets. He would not back down. Come, let's see how painful it is to the end. The corner of his mouth curled into a stubborn smile. Lin Feng's fighting spirit was instead high. He had not tried this kind of extreme training in a long time, a training that was close to the limit of his willpower. The more difficult it was, the more challenging it was. The flames roared. In this flaming passage, only Lin Feng was alone. The test of willpower, the tempering of the body, was a reward for every bit of training. The flame of rebirth was like steel entering a furnace, being tempered, assimilated, and fused. Fusing with the surrounding strong fire element, matching and adapting to the body. This was a process, and right now, Lin Feng was accelerating to the limit of his endurance. It's fast. It's really fast. If it was an ordinary warrior, they would not be able to endure the pain. However, Lin Feng revealed an excited expression. The flame of rebirth from the 52nd to the 53rd level, I've already tempered more than half, and spent a full 2 months accumulating. But right now, in less than 2 days, the 53rd level, as he was thinking in his heart, suddenly roar. The flames on his body seemed to explode as a scorching roar resounded. It was a kind of joyous power, a kind of heart-stirring power. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. No matter how much pain he felt, no matter how intense it was, it couldn't suppress the excitement and joy in his heart. In less than 2 days, his flame of rebirth had reached the 53rd level. How shocking. Back then, it took me 3 months to cultivate the flames of rebirth from the 40th level to the 50th level. After that, my cultivation stagnated at the same place, unable to advance even an inch. From the 50th level to the 51st level, I spent a whole month. From the 51st level to the 52nd level, I spent nearly 2 months. From the 52nd level to the 53rd level, I cultivated for 2 whole months, and I only passed the halfway mark. Now, Lin Feng's eyes lit up and he was overjoyed. His current cultivation speed was what true cultivation was like. My guess was right. What hinders the cultivation speed of the flame of rebirth is the difference in strength. Every 10 levels is a span. It's not just a span of energy, but also a span of cultivation. Lin Feng was suddenly enlightened and no longer had any doubts. In less than 2 days, his flame of rebirth's power had doubled. And this was just the beginning. Continue. Lin Feng clenched his fists. The pain became even more intense. At every moment, his body was burning intensely. It was as if he was in hell, as if he was in a cruel sea of fire. Veins popped out on his forehead. His face was distorted because he was forcing himself to endure. However, Lin Feng's eyes were sparkling and full of fighting spirit. He didn't have any intention of giving up. No pain, no gain. On the 9th day, the flame of rebirth reached the 54th level. On the 22nd day, the flame of rebirth reached the 55th level. Although the speed of improvement was much slower, it was still steadily increasing. In this flaming tunnel, the further one went, the more intense the pain was, but the better the effect was. Come, again. Lin Feng felt as if his entire body was being burned by fire. He was abnormally horrified. As he gradually adapted to the pain and had a firm goal in his heart, Lin Feng didn't shrink back and continued forward. One step, another step. He slowly walked in this extreme road. His footsteps were heavy, but he didn't sway at all. His willpower was extremely shocking. The 4th checkpoint. I definitely won't lose here. Lin Feng gritted his teeth. There was no sign of giving up. His spirit was still the same. The speed of cultivation began to slow down. On the 46th day, the flame of rebirth reached the 56th level. On the 91st day, the flame of rebirth reached the 57th level. On the 178th day, the flame of rebirth reached the 58th level. Bang! Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Outside his body, the intense flame of rebirth burst out. It was crazy and ferocious, like the flames in the Extreme Road's Phoenix realm. It was full of power and power. It has increased by more than 50 times. Lin Feng felt the increase in power of the flame of rebirth. His heart trembled. This power was really too strong. Compared to the original flame of rebirth, it was on a completely different level. Even he himself was shocked by his current strength. The speed of cultivation was too shocking. It's a pity that to increase from the 58th level to the 59th level, I need at least 150 days. With the remaining 112 days, even if I try my best, it won't be enough. Moreover, I also need enough time to complete the 4th checkpoint's Beast King mission. Lin Feng thought to himself. It was a pity. Even if the speed of cultivation in the Extreme Road's Phoenix realm was fast, the time he had was still not enough. If he had enough time, he could even increase the flame of rebirth from the 59th level to the 60th level. How powerful would that be? The power of one advancement in the 10th level was immeasurable. But I should be content. My current strength has probably far exceeded my expectations. How strong will it be? Lin Feng smiled. His eyes were shining as he clenched his fists. The 2 clusters of flame of rebirth instantly disappeared. Even if the flames had completely transformed, he could still control them easily. The flame of rebirth alone is already powerful. If I use the 6th level star gravity, the 9th level star control force, and the full power of the constellation, I'm afraid it's almost the same as my war god state 178 days ago, and a fire spirit master can fight against 10,000 alone. Lin Feng's lips curled into a confident smile. He was extremely happy in his heart. This proved that his 178 days of bitter cultivation and extreme torture were not in vain. Even though he didn't cultivate at all, just the absorption of his body made him a 6th level star C-level fire spirit master. What a great harvest! However, in terms of one-on-one ability, the war god's strength is still irreplaceable. The strategy of Emperor Shun's 2nd level, the 9th level, its power completely overpowers the 7th level. I wonder what the legendary 10th level will be like. His eyes lit up. Lin Feng was full of expectations. In these 178 days, his main body's cultivation didn't lag behind either. Not only did he absorb and refine the star crystals to the limit, he also continuously comprehended the strategy of Emperor Shun to increase his strength. The Emperor Shun's aura could not only strengthen the muscles, increase the strength and defense, but also perfect the attack. Although the 9th level and the 7th level were at the same level, the difference was like heaven and earth. Whether it's the strength of War God or Celestial Spirit Master, I've reached a bottleneck. In a short period of time, it's hard to increase rapidly. The remaining 112 days should be the time to complete the mission. This time, I think I should have enough power to intimidate the beasts. His eyes bright, Lin Feng's lips curled slightly. He was full of confidence. The current him was completely different from the 178 days ago, outside the Yanling Manor. How's the situation, Jinghan? Sitting comfortably with his legs crossed. Wan Macho's eyes were relaxed and natural. One couldn't tell at all that this was a formidable person who wanted to destroy the fierce Yin sect and unify the entire Yanling Manor. That pair of calm eyes, with a faintly discernible smile on his face, was more like a young warrior. His sloppy appearance didn't look like the patriarch of the Yanling clan at all. Master, it seems to be a little different from the original plan. Wan Jinghan cupped his hands and said. Wan Jinghan respected Wan Macho from the bottom of his heart, not only because he was the strongest person in the Yanling Manor and the patriarch of the Yanling clan, but also because he was indebted to Wan Macho for nurturing him. He couldn't become the strongest heavenly spirit master in the Yanling Manor without Wan Macho's careful nurturing. Oh, even your disciple, my grand disciple Wan Gu, can't handle it. Wan Macho's eyes showed a hint of curiosity. Yes, it's a long story. Wan Jinghan said slowly. Wan Macho's eyes flashed, and he instantly sat up straight. Let's hear it. I see. Wan Macho nodded. Yes, although Wan Drybones didn't do his job, it's obvious that the fierce Yin sect was prepared. And this little guy called Lin Feng is even more elusive. He's hidden very well. Wan Jinghan frowned. Although he didn't care about Lin Feng on the outside, he thought highly of him in his heart. To be able to obtain 3,690,000 points and be ranked 3rd on the 100-year ranking was enough to prove his strength. It was impossible to obtain such a high number of points by relying on luck alone. Is that so? Wan Macho narrowed his eyes. That old fox Ji, Jin's new disciple? Looks like he's not simple. Wan Macho nodded thoughtfully and said, although I don't know what that old fox Ji Jin is up to, since they've entered the Yanling Manor, it won't be easy for them to leave. Our Yanling clan's rare genius, Wan Gu, may be young, but he's meticulous. His mission completion rate is 100%. Wan Jinghan smiled faintly. Wan Gu was trained by him. Continue to monitor him. There's no need to rush. We still have time to play with that old fox, Ji Jin. Wan Macho smiled faintly. Yes, master. Wan Jinghan cupped his hands. Chapter 643. Let's use them as the first battle. Lin Feng stood calmly on the rock wall. He looked into the distance. Although he couldn't see the giant beasts, his eyes shone with sharpness. His life spirit's senses were extremely clear. Not far away, there were more than 300 giant beasts gathered. It was obvious that they were a powerful force. It wasn't a lot, but it wasn't a small number either. It's a good opportunity to test it out. Not only can I test the power of a fire spirit master, but I can also test, can I intimidate the giant beasts? Lin Feng's eyes flickered, his heart brimming with anticipation. He couldn't afford to lose this battle. Thunder slaughter armor. Lin Feng shouted. In an instant, the phoenix life plate shone brightly. His body was surrounded by a golden light. His skin, bones, arms, and every part of his body changed instantly. Sharp barbs gathered behind him. On top of Lin Feng's head, the golden horn was fierce and ferocious. Lightning flashed. His strength and defense were strengthened instantly. His body suddenly grew to 2 meters tall. However, Lin Feng didn't plan to fight with the power of the god of war. He didn't use the thunder slaughter armor for defense. It was purely for his aura. The aura of the metal element divine beast, Thunder Slaughter, filled the entire armor and covered his own aura. If he wanted to become the king of beasts, this process was necessary. After all, how could a human become the king of beasts? Whoosh! Lin Feng rushed forward. Suddenly, a furious roar came into Lin Feng's ears. In Lin Feng's mind, the image of a unicorn-like beast appeared. Its entire body was green and brown, with light brown stripes. He had seen this giant beast that day. It was one of the beasts that chased after him the most ferociously and with the most effort. Great! I can settle old and new grudges at once. Lin Feng's eyes were burning. After this roar, the roars of beasts rose and fell one after another, causing the entire ground to tremble. However, there was no doubt that the strength of the other giant beasts was inferior to the unicorn. Capture the leader first. Let's kill this unicorn first. Lin Feng's expression was calm and composed, without the slightest hint of panic. Even though it was 1 against 300, the current him was completely different from the 178 days ago. Times have changed. He hovered in midair. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. The roars of the beasts came one after another, rising and falling one after another. Smoke and dust filled the air. The charging formation formed by 300 giant beasts was quite daring. Looking over, he saw a cloud of sand and rocks flying into the sky. The smallest beasts were several hundred meters long, while the largest were several thousand meters long. Their enormous bodies seemed to cover the entire sky. His monstrous aura caused people's hearts to tremble. Although there were only a few hundred of them, even Lei Meng in his normal state would have to avoid them. However, Lin Feng was different. Crackle, crackle. 2 clusters of flames suddenly appeared. It was filled with intense heat. Flames bloomed vigorously, and the energy was extremely dense. Lin Feng clenched his fists. His eyes shone with clear light. The 6th layer of star power was instantly imbued, containing a strong constellation power. His control was even more perfect, as if they were his left and right hands. The 2 fireballs suddenly seemed to have a life of their own. Go! Lin Feng shouted as his hands shook. The 2 fireballs flew with a loud bang toward the largest unicorn at the forefront. The Rebirth Flame's power was increased by 50 times. The Rebirth Fireball's power was mixed with the Constellation power. Although the increase was not as much as 50 times, it was more than 10 times. Its power was completely released. Wherever the fireballs passed, even the air was ignited. No! Roar! The unicorn roared furiously, as if it had gone berserk. The 2 Rebirth Fireballs drew 2 perfect arcs in the air. Under the control of Lin Feng's hands, how could such a gigantic beast be able to dodge these 2 fireballs? Die! Lin Feng shouted. In an instant, boom! Flames bloomed. The unicorn's aura turned into nothingness. It was directly blasted to nothing, not even ashes left. Not only it, but the huge beasts that were extremely close to it were all affected. The energy of the 2 Rebirth Fireballs converged, forming an intense ring of flames. It affected a large area, and more than 10 huge beasts were severely injured or even killed. Roar! Crackle! Crackle! The beasts roared hysterically, and they were even more furious. The death of the unicorn affected the other huge beasts. Not only did it not frighten the other huge beasts, but it also aroused their anger. It was exactly the same as Lei Meng that day. I knew it wouldn't be that easy. Lin Feng's eyes glowed. His body was like a sharp arrow. He did not dodge, but swooped down from the sky. Intense flames surrounded his body. Lin Feng's expression was serious as he shouted, "Flame Dragon Shield." The Rebirth fire bloomed with a dazzling luster, forming a ring of flames around his body. It was a dragon shield with a fiery red glow. The star power gathered and was quickly consumed, but it was quickly replenished. Lin Feng now had 6 star levels. The speed of his recovery was extremely shocking. Boom! Boom! The 2 Rebirth fireballs in his hands roared again. Kill! Lin Feng's mouth was cold, and there was no mercy in his eyes. To frighten the huge beasts, the first thing he had to do was to kill. Just like Lei Meng, When he had killed enough, he had gone crazy, and the huge beasts were terrified. This was what it meant to frighten. In the world of nature, everything depended on strength. Boom! A violent explosion sounded. The whole ground exploded crazily, and the canyon that had been peaceful for a long time was hit by a strong impact again. Flames filled the sky. Lin Feng killed the beasts alone, and a familiar feeling rose in his heart. Once upon a time, when he was in the Tianwu continent, wasn't it like this? However, these huge beasts were far more powerful than the demonic beasts in the Tianwu continent. They were too strong. However, the current Lin Feng was even more terrifying. Boom! Boom! Crazy killing. Lin Feng's eyes were bloodshot. Everywhere he passed, it was as if the god of fire had descended, and meteorites exploded. One by one, the huge beasts were turned into nothingness by the flames, and the gray stones were burned to ashes. Courageous, decisive. Kill. Lin Feng's eyes did not have a second word. This was a challenge, and also a mission. He had no way to retreat. He had to kill head-on like Lei Ming and fight in close combat. The flame dragon shield was constantly attacked, but there were few that could break through the defense of the rebirth fire. Even if there were, the power passed through the flame dragon shield and was swallowed by the Lei Ming armor. Lin Feng went in and out, and the huge beast howled in pain. Corpses were everywhere, and blood flowed everywhere. But the huge beasts were still crazy, and there was no sign of fear. Die! All of you die! At this time, Lin Feng had no way to retreat. Bang! Eyes shining, Lin Feng's aura burst out from his hands. The strong rebirth fire spread wildly in all directions, erupting with all its power. A raging fire, condensed with strong astral power, exploded and gathered all of Lin Feng's astral power. The flame dragon shield had disappeared. Lin Feng's eyes dimmed slightly, but they did not lose their luster. Although his astral power was consumed, the existence of the destined star plate would not dry up his astral power, and it would slowly recover. Hundreds of huge beasts, more than half of them were killed. The huge beasts close to the center of the explosion were all killed. Those in the middle of the distance were injured, and those further away were slightly better. But all the huge beasts were frightened by Lin Feng's attack. Too strong. Surrender. Lin Feng's eyes were cold. The strong aura of Lei Ming spread out, and he had completely transformed into a huge beast. The power of this flame was already strong enough. It was so strong that it could even kill these giant beasts if he fully displayed the strength he should have. However, roar, roar, roar. Crazy beasts roared, full of anger, loud and clear in the sky. One after another, it was a strong fighting spirit. It was a kind of unyielding spirit. How could this be? Lin Feng frowned. Although his eyes were cold, there was a hint of hesitation. He could feel the anger of these huge beasts, and they did not have the slightest intention of surrendering. Deterrence failed. How could it fail? How could it fail? Lin Feng could no longer maintain the balance of his mind, and the look in his eyes changed. He had used all his strength to cultivate for 178 days, and his strength had improved greatly, but he still could not intimidate these huge beasts. Beasts roared endlessly in Lin Feng's ears. His expression turned extremely unsightly. A flash of uneasiness flashed in his heart, but now was not the time to think. The huge beasts were coming at him angrily. Lin Feng gritted his teeth, clenched his hands, and looked determined. If you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. If you don't want to surrender, then I'll kill you until you surrender. Lin Feng's eyes were full of killing intent, and his chest rose and fell. Since these huge beasts were not willing to surrender, then he would kill, continue to kill crazily, kill until they were timid, kill until they were powerless. Boom! Flames filled the sky. After a cup of tea's time, Lin Feng stood in place, his body trembling slightly. His body was stained with blood, but it was not his. It was the blood of the huge beasts that were scattered all over the ground. There were more than 300 huge beasts, and now they were all turned into nothingness. Not a single one survived, and they all died tragically in Lin Feng's hands. His battle record was very glorious. However, Lin Feng's expression was a little lonely. Where did I go wrong? Did I make a mistake? Why did they refuse to surrender? What is the reason? Clenching his fists, Lin Feng frowned. He was puzzled, and the look in his eyes kept changing. After the battle, Lin Feng's killing intent gradually calmed down. However, after thinking about it, he felt that something was wrong, but he could not put his finger on it. It's easy to kill, but difficult to make them surrender. These 300 huge beasts are just the tip of the iceberg in the canyon. There is still time, a total of 112 days. I will not give up. Lin Feng raised his head, and his eyes flashed with determination. There must be a chance. There must be a secret hidden in this fourth checkpoint that I don't know. If that's the case, I'll unravel it layer by layer. Let's see what it is. Lin Feng let out a long breath and calmed his mind. His gaze swept across the huge beast bodies, flashing with sharpness. Lin Feng was still confident. He would not be defeated so easily. Chapter 644. One day later. Bang! Lin Feng's hands burst into a ball of blazing flames. In the end, the last giant beast that was still resisting was blasted into pieces in an instant. It was thoroughly dead. Countless corpses were scattered on the ground. Lin Feng's brows were tightly knitted together as he fell into deep thought. Failure. He failed again and again. 178 days in exchange for nothing. I didn't expect to return to the starting point again. These giant beasts are easy to kill, but to intimidate, difficult. Lin Feng sighed softly. He couldn't come to a conclusion no matter how hard he thought. Logically speaking, his current strength was already strong enough. Not to mention a few hundred, even a few thousand wouldn't be a problem. His strength was not comparable to Lei Ming's, but Lei Ming couldn't fight thousands like him. Each of their own strengths. In terms of intimidation, his strength was even stronger than Lei Ming's. But why are they still unwilling to submit? They would rather die than submit. Many giant beasts are terrified, but they still fight to the death. What is the secret behind this? How can I become a beast king? Lin Feng gritted his teeth, feeling apprehensive. Although there was still a lot of time, if he didn't solve this question, he would be stuck in a quagmire and sink deeper with time. It was getting more and more dangerous. 3 days. 10 days. There were only 100 days left before the 300-day time limit. Lin Feng's eyes were cold, and his face was filled with a cold glint, filled with killing intent. He coldly stepped over the giant beast's corpses and stepped on the blood. There was a strong smell of blood in his body, but Lin Feng didn't show any emotion. Kill. He killed for a full 10 days. Tens of thousands of giant beasts were killed, and not a single one was left alive. Although I don't know what the secret of the fourth checkpoint is, but since there is enough time and I have enough strength, there is no need to complicate things. Just a simple word. Kill. Lin Feng's eyes focused as he rushed forward without hesitation. Strong flames gathered in his hands. Lin Feng was like a god of death, leaving corpses everywhere he went. Burn everything. Although I don't know how to become a beast king. However, if there isn't even a single giant beast in this canyon, this mission will naturally be easily solved. Lin Feng's expression was calm, but he had already made up his mind. The foolish old man moving the mountains. Perhaps this seemed extremely stupid, but it was not necessarily a bad idea. Let's kill to our heart's content first. It was indeed a solution. However, only a monstrous genius like Lin Feng was capable of such a feat. With the unlimited flame of rebirth, his strength was inexhaustible. Even if Lei Ming was at his peak, he would not have the ability to fight for a long time. However, that was not the case for Lin Feng. How many magical beasts had he slaughtered in the Tianwu continent? In comparison, the giant beasts here were not even worth mentioning. Even if they were all killed, it would only be a drop in the ocean. Soon, a month had passed. The entire canyon was filled with the thick smell of blood mixed with the stench of giant beasts' corpses. It was extremely disgusting, and the cause of all this was only a single person. Lin Feng, galloping through the cliff. Lin Feng's eyes were bright and full of vigor. 40 days of killing not only did not tire him out, but also aroused the killing intent in his heart. Thinking of the countless fierce Yin sect disciples that were slaughtered in the Yanling royal residence, Lin Feng's heart was filled with a strong killing intent. He could not wait to find a mastermind and ruthlessly kill him. There are still 80 days left. Although the canyon is huge, it will take at least a month, and at most 2 months for all the giant beasts here to die and cease to exist. At that time, the mission will naturally fall apart. With his eyes bright, Lin Feng's mouth was filled with a faint smile. Although the sword was unconventional, the process was not important. What was important was the result. As long as he could complete the mission of the 4th checkpoint, it would be enough. At this moment, boom, rumble. The ground shook violently, and the sky seemed to have turned dark. The entire canyon was filled with the furious roars of giant beasts, echoing one after another in his ears. Oh! Lin Feng's figure stopped. Thud! With a light leap, he landed on the rock wall. Lin Feng's brows were tightly knitted. What happened? This beast roar is a little different from the ones I've heard before. It seems it's mixed with some fear and panic. Lin Feng's eyes were bright. Standing on a rock wall, he could feel waves of violent tremors from time to time. It was as if a disaster was about to befall. Strange. Perhaps it's an opportunity. Let's go and take a look. Nodding, Lin Feng pondered. This was the first time the canyon had such a huge change after he came out of seclusion. There must be a reason for this abnormality. Oh, these giant beasts are running away? Lin Feng flew in the air, his eyes bright. As far as he could see, the giant beasts were running away. They were not chasing after him, but fleeing in panic. Every giant beast's face was filled with fear. It was panic and fear that came from the bottom of their hearts. During this period of time, Lin Feng had been dealing with these giant beasts and killing countless of them every day. He was very familiar with them. They even gave up on sensing, even to the extent of ignoring me. Lin Feng smiled in a carefree manner, feeling a little strange. Usually, as long as he approached, these giant beasts would roar in anger and hostility. But now, let's look at the others. This canyon is getting more and more interesting. Lin Feng's brows flickered, and he felt an inexplicable sense of hope in his heart. His intuition told him that this abnormality might be the key to solving the mystery. Swoosh! Like a sharp arrow, Lin Feng shuttled through. He went straight in the opposite direction of these giant beasts, his expression unchanged. The giant beasts are afraid, but it doesn't mean that I'm afraid. I'd like to see what kind of existence can make them so scared. Lin Feng's lips curled up slightly. He was still confident. It was the boldness of a skilled person. 15 minutes later. Oh, that is? Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he looked into the distance. As far as he could see, a group of giants were holding huge maces and slaughtering a group of giant beasts. Their upper bodies were naked, and dense bone spikes shot out cold light in all directions. The giants' burly bodies were filled with powerful strength. Compared to the giant beasts, these giants' bodies were even better. Most importantly, they were very similar to humans. Sorcerer tribe. Lin Feng's chest rose and fell. He muttered these 2 words inexplicably. Lin Feng instantly shook his head. No, they shouldn't be sorcerer tribe. How can the sorcerer tribe have such a terrifying body? They were thousands of meters tall. Even the sorcerer tribe, who were usually burly and strong, looked like ants in front of these giants. These giants are very similar to the Xianming sorcerer tribe described in the ancient books. Lin Feng thought to himself, but he was puzzled. Just as he was thinking, this group of giants had already torn dozens of giant beasts into pieces. They held their maces and laughed wildly. And the most terrifying thing was, they were actually eating the giant beasts' bodies raw. It was as if they were hunting for food. Boom! Lin Feng's head exploded, and his eyes widened. I understand now. I see. The doubts in his heart were instantly solved. At this moment, he finally understood why these giant beasts were in such a sorry state, so scared and frantically fleeing. There was no doubt that the earth-shaking sound just now was made by these giants that resembled the sorcerer tribe. They were stronger than the giant beasts, and the giant beasts in the canyon were obviously no match for the giants. It was just that they were existences that were like food. They were incomparably inferior. No wonder the giant beasts fled with all their might. I'm afraid these giants have hunted for food more than once or twice. It's precisely because of the lingering power that the giant beasts are so scared. In his heart, he was getting clearer and clearer. Lin Feng's lips curled into a faint smile, and he nodded. But in an instant, bang, bang, his heartbeat quickened, and Lin Feng's expression changed drastically. This is... Lin Feng covered his chest with his right hand. He felt as if his heart was about to jump out of his chest. It was not fear or nervousness, but a sense of danger, an unusually familiar feeling. How similar it was. The heart of sorcerer. My heart of sorcerer can actually feel it. Lin Feng could only feel disbelief, and his eyes were filled with surprise. Ever since his heart of sorcerer fused with his body, it was rarely touched and would be startled awake. There is only one possibility for such an intense reaction: the Gomang sorcerer tribe. The Gomang sorcerer tribe exists here. How was this possible? Lin Feng felt his mouth go dry, and he could not believe it. But the truth was right in front of him, and he had no choice but to believe it. Lin Feng clenched his fists, and his eyes lit up. Then he no longer paid attention to the giants that were eating, and he sped toward the location that his heart had sensed. Whether it was true or not, he would know once he found out. The journey was not far. Along the way, Lin Feng saw countless giant beasts running wildly, and he was panicking. Inside the canyon, there was a huge mess at this time. These giant beasts were all in a state of panic, and they were far more frightened and terrified than when he had hunted them. This was their survival instinct. It's getting closer and closer. The feeling is getting clearer and clearer. How is this possible? The Gomang sorcerer tribe actually exists here. Lin Feng's eyes were tightly knitted together, and his heart was beating faster and faster. He covered his chest where the heart of sorcerer was, but he knew that the heart of sorcerer would not lie to him. The reaction this time was more intense and throbbing than any other time. He even vaguely felt an unusually familiar feeling, as if he had felt it before, or perhaps it was a part of his body. The inexplicable feeling made Lin Feng feel uneasy. It was hard to calm down. Soon, I will know the answer. What exactly is it? The appearance of these giants, and this inexplicable throbbing. Could it be related to the mission of the fourth checkpoint? Lin Feng's eyes kept changing, but he did not slow down at all. His speeding figure passed through one rock after another, and his heart felt like it was about to jump out of his throat. After passing through a giant rock wall, Lin Feng finally stopped and looked into the distance, his eyes wide open. He finally saw it. At the end of the month, there will be 2 updates at 1500 hours and 2100 hours every day, and 3 updates will be resumed from October 1st. The traditional version has ended, and the ending has been uploaded. However, the electronic version will continue. What I can reveal to everyone is that the 2nd chapter, Yinling Mansion, is about to end, and the 3rd chapter, Land of the 9 Provinces, will begin. Returning to the Lin clan, Lin Feng's starry sky eyes will begin to awaken, and the mystery of his background will slowly be revealed. Xiao Xiao will try her best to speed up the update caret. Chapter 645. It was also a giant with a burly build. It was a few thousand meters tall and looked very similar to the giants he had just seen. It looked like a human, but was not human. It was dark green all over and had the body of a bird and the face of a human. Its thin face made it look like a person who had been hungry for a long time. It had huge wings on its back like a huge bird. Its legs were huge, as if it was stepping on two dragons. Its claws were as sharp as blades and glinted coldly. Was it not? Gomang Shaman Tribe. It is indeed the Gomang Shaman Tribe. Lin Feng's eyes were bright, and he did not doubt at all. Those giants looked like the Xianming Shaman Tribe, but he had never seen one before. However, he had seen the Gomang Shaman Tribe. He had even clashed with them a few times. His memory was still fresh. What huge body! This body is exactly the same as the giant beasts. However, the aura of the Gomang Shaman Tribe will not change at all. Lin Feng's eyes were burning as he sensed deeply the dense aura of wood. The Gomang Shaman Tribe was naturally close to wood and used the wood origin energy to refine their bodies and strengthen their strength. I wonder how the Gomang Shaman Tribe here is different from the Doling world, or is there a connection between the two? Lin Feng thought to himself as he saw the 3 Gomang Shaman Tribe members slaughtering the giant beasts. Dozens of giant beasts scurried around but did not even dare to attack. They fled frantically and did not dare to resist at all. It was as if they were slaves. It was a little strange. Just like when they submitted to Lei Meng, these giant beasts clearly had the ability but did not dare to attack. They acted based on their instincts and lacked a bit of intelligence. Thump! Thump! The feeling of his heartbeat assaulted him again. Lin Feng's eyes flashed with a bright light. Thunder, slaughter armor! Lin Feng shouted. His figure changed instantly. This time, he could not be careless when facing the 3 Gomang Shaman Tribe members. These 3 were much stronger than those giant beasts. The Gomang Shamans who had chased after him twice in the chaotic swamp were like ants compared to the 3 of them. They paled in comparison to the 3 of them. However, he was no longer the same as before. Star C Level 9. Star Control, Force 8 Gears. Lin Feng's battle god was quite powerful. Most importantly, with the Thunder Slaughter armor, Lin Feng's strength had once again skyrocketed. Bang! Bang! Lin Feng fiercely shouted as 2 scorching fireballs condensed with intense starlight energy appeared. Boom! A horrifying explosion sounded. The 2 fireballs were like meteorites falling from the sky, their power radiating in all directions. The Gomang Shaman Tribe members on the left and right of the Gomang Shaman Tribe. And at this moment, King Shun's Gang Qi. Lin Feng's hands trembled, and the aura of heaven and earth that he triggered was extremely dense. The golden light of the lightning slaughter armor blossomed, and the nightmare demon spear in Lin Feng's hand flashed with a sharp luster. A violent black mist condensed in the surroundings, and a whirlpool of wind appeared at his right foot. Qi, attacking at full speed. Their target was the strongest Gomang Shaman Tribe in the center. Quick! It was extremely fast. Emperor Shun's Gang Qi of the 9th heaven blossomed with a sharp radiance. The aura of heaven and earth gathered crazily and merged with the power of the stars, greatly increasing its power. The spiral-like airflow turned into light and shadow, and Lin Feng's power erupted at this moment. Light and shadow spear art. Lin Feng gave it his all. His extremely fast speed and explosive spear techniques were incomparable to those of 178 days ago. The Gomang Shaman Tribe's eyes were bright, and a strong aura of wood exploded. The mace in his hand was swung at Lin Feng, and the power of breaking the sky was unstoppable. Lin Feng's huge body was inconspicuous, but the momentum of Lin Feng's attack completely overwhelmed the Gomang Shaman Tribe. In fact, the Gomang Shaman Tribe was not known for their offensive power. Boom! The mace was destroyed in an instant. Lin Feng's speed was too fast, too fierce. #% at the Gomang Shaman Tribe roared angrily at the sky. Its green body condensed into a huge brilliance, blocking Lin Feng's spear, but relied too much on its own defense. Flame of Rebirth. The look in Lin Feng's eyes changed drastically. A strong flame of rebirth was ignited in his eyes. It was the same origin energy, but Lin Feng's flame of rebirth had now become a powerful weapon. It was unstoppable. Die! Lin Feng shouted. Boom! The Gomang shaman tribe let out a heart-wrenching roar. But in an instant, the roar stopped abruptly. The nightmare demon spear and Lin Feng's body completely broke through the Gomang shaman tribe's defense, and a terrifying explosion resounded in an instant. Lin Feng was extremely ruthless. Boom! His aura exploded, and the flame of rebirth burned even more crazily. The Gomang shaman tribe's huge body exploded into countless pieces, and it could not even block one of Lin Feng's attacks. The difference was huge. This is... Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Where his gaze landed, a huge green drop of blood appeared on the ground where the Gomang shaman tribe had exploded. How similar. It's the green drop of blood in the palace. It's the transcendent being who triggered the heart of Lich for the first time. Lin Feng instantly remembered everything. That day in the chaotic swamp, he had found this huge green drop of blood in the Gomang shaman tribe's territory. It was exactly the same. Abundant energy and mysterious aura. This was the essence and existence of the Gomang shaman tribe. Ha! He took the green drop of blood and instantly fused it with the heart of Lich. A violent force entered his body, and Lin Feng jumped faster and faster, as if his blood had melted into water and it was filled with an indescribably wonderful feeling. However, Lin Feng did not have any time to waste, because at the same time, the huge spiked maces from his left and right had arrived in an instant. Shield of the Flame Dragon, Lin Feng shouted softly. The intense flame of rebirth, accompanied by the powerful constellation power, instantly rose. No matter what, he could not let down his guard, because the battle was not over yet. Bang! Bang! The power was quite terrifying. It broke through the shield of the flame dragon, and a small part of the power passed through the lightning armor and hit his body. Lin Feng staggered, and his chest felt as if it had been struck by lightning. He could feel the terrifying power of the two Gomang shaman tribe. However, this was the only time. Boom! The flames exploded. Lin Feng's eyes were as bright as the stars, and his battle intent surged again. 1 against 2, even the giant Gomang shaman tribe would not be his match. Only death awaited them. The massacre began again. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. The huge green drop of blood was very important to him. Chi! The nightmare demon spear pierced through the body of the last Gomang shaman tribe, and a violent explosion occurred. An unpleasant shriek rang in his ears, but the Gomang shaman tribe giant died unwillingly. However, this was a natural world. The strong were respected, and the defeated were doomed to die. That was the case for the giant beasts. Pa! Lin Feng grabbed the green drop of blood with his right hand, and the corner of his mouth curved indifferently. Another drop. This time, he obtained as many as 3 drops. The huge green drop of blood was filled with rich energy. Lin Feng was overjoyed. Without a doubt, his Lich's heart would be able to eat its fill. Suddenly, bang! His head exploded. Lin Feng was dumbfounded. He seemed to have entered a strange state. The Lich's heart absorbed the huge green drop of blood, and he was in a state of excitement. His chest kept beating. Inexplicably, various scenes appeared in his mind. Lin Feng's eyes widened. He was actually looking at the humongous Gomang shaman tribe. It was real. Its bewitching eyes were domineering, and its huge wings emitted an emerald light. The flood dragon under its feet seemed to submit. It was a living existence. How similar. He had seen it the first time he absorbed the green drop of blood. This time, the feeling was even deeper. It was even closer. This is the energy of the green drop of blood. It was transmitted to my mind through the Lich's heart. It's really powerful. Lin Feng sighed. The energy contained in the green drop of blood made him gasp in amazement. It was definitely non-existence at the Starseed level. It was a power similar to the Origin. It had huge potential. Inner vision. Lin Feng closed his eyes. He had entered the world of the Lich's heart once. It was much easier to enter again. Immersing his mind and feeling the power of the Lich's heart, Lin Feng quickly immersed himself in his own body. He slowly opened his eyes. Hua! His eyes lit up. Lin Feng felt a strong life force. He focused his eyes. The scene in front of him became clear. A beautiful heart with a sparkling luster was beating like a pulse. It was like a heart, but it was not a heart. A unique energy was emitted. It was a strong wood energy. The Lich's heart. At the edge of the Lich's heart, there were small green dots of light. Compared to the Lich's heart, they were like fireflies and the moon. There were a total of 35 of them. This is the blood essence of the Gomang shaman tribe that I absorbed, Lin Feng said. He had benefited a lot from the few clashes with the Gomang shaman tribe. Especially in the last battle in the chaotic swamp, he had killed a lot. At this moment, the Lich's heart was wrapped in a thick green light. It was greedily swallowing. Threads of fog entered the center of the Lich's heart through every crack, as if it was absorbing and refining something. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He thought to himself, and his consciousness permeated the heart. Soon Hua. He entered the center of the Lich's heart. It was transparent, bright, and sparkling. However, Lin Feng was looking straight at the center. It was a scale-like light wall. The other light walls were transparent and milky white. Only one scale-like light wall was dark green and had a strong aura. At this moment, another light wall was constantly absorbing and changing. It was gradually turning green. I see. The huge green drop of blood I absorbed is actually here. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled as he pondered. He was getting more and more curious about the heart of the Lich. However, as he watched the green drop of blood take shape and become a part of the heart of the Lich, he could not figure it out. I'm afraid I have to wait until all the light walls here are filled. Maybe. Only then will I be able to unravel the mystery. Lin Feng nodded and stopped guessing. Everything would come to light on that day. Lin Feng's silhouette gradually disappeared as he returned. Looking at the mess, the corners of his lips curled up. He looked around. At this moment, the behemoths had already disappeared without a trace. They ran really fast. It's only been a short while, and they're all gone. Lin Feng smiled and found it funny. It was quite lively just a moment ago. Countless behemoths had gathered, but now they had all scattered. Who said that the behemoths were not afraid of death? They ran faster than anyone else. Suddenly, wait. Lin Feng's expression changed, and his eyes flickered. He stared at the messy footprints on the ground, and then turned to look in the direction that the behemoths had fled. Lin Feng sped up and clenched his fists. Chapter 646. I found it strange just now. There are so many of these giant beasts. If they were to scatter and flee, how many of them could the 3 Gomang shamans kill? But now, Lin Feng's eyes were bright as he stared at the messy footprints on the ground. Although it was chaotic, if one were to observe carefully, one could clearly see that these giant beasts were all fleeing in one direction. And this direction, how could I not notice it just now? All the giant beasts were fleeing in the same direction. If they were simply fleeing, they should have fled in a panic. Especially when they were facing the threat of death. Why would they think so much? Lin Feng clenched his fists and stared in the direction he had come from. This was definitely not a coincidence. It is indeed an opportunity. There must be a secret in the direction the giant beasts are fleeing in. Perhaps this is what I have been looking for. Nodding lightly, Lin Feng felt a sense of joy in his heart. In the chaos this time, he had not only absorbed the 3 giant green blood droplets, but he had also exposed the secret of the giant beasts in the canyon. The opportunity was getting closer and closer to him. There's no time to lose. Let's move out immediately. Lin Feng's eyes were bright. His figure was dazzling as he sped away. Just as I expected. Flying in the air, Lin Feng was even more certain of his thoughts. Throughout his journey, every group of giant beasts had fled in the same direction. What exactly is there? What kind of secret is hidden in the 4th checkpoint? Why are all the giant beasts fleeing in this direction in the face of such a life and death situation? Lin Feng's eyes flashed as he pondered. Although he had encountered other giant shaman tribe along the way, Lin Feng did not attack again. At this moment, there was nothing more important than finding the secret of the fourth checkpoint. Judging from the giant bee sphere of the giant shaman tribe, it seems to have been there for a long time. If this place really existed, these giant beasts would have been killed by the giant shaman tribe long ago. However, there's still a large number of them alive. It is obvious that, in the direction they are fleeing in, there is an existence that can protect them. With a deep look in his eyes, Lin Feng slowly nodded. Lin Feng's heart was as calm as a speck of dust as he unhurriedly followed the giant beasts. The further they went in that direction, the more beasts there were. However, the traces of the giant of the shaman tribe became rarer and rarer, as if they were slowly disappearing. The earth was still shaking, indicating that the witch tribe giants were still hunting for food. However, this place was rather peaceful. It seems that the giant of the shaman tribe is quite fearful of that place. Although they prey on giant beasts, they're not willing to take risks. This is getting more and more interesting. Lin Feng's lips curled into a faint smile as he sped forward. Clenching his fists tightly, his senses became clearer and clearer. It's here. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. In front of them was a deep and majestic canyon. It was flickering with a faint golden radiance. Lightning radiance shot out, giving people a feeling of oppression. In front of him, there seemed to be a membrane of light condensing. Lin Feng gently touched it, but there was no resistance at all. It didn't seem to reject him. At this moment, hundreds of thousands of giant beasts had gathered in this canyon. The scene was extremely spectacular. Floating in the air, Lin Feng stared ahead. He had a very special feeling in his heart. Covering his chest with his left hand, Lin Feng took a deep breath. He could clearly feel that the golden fate astrolabe in his body was shining brightly. It's the lightning mantis. This place has a great connection with the lightning mantis. With a bright light in his eyes, Lin Feng shouted fiercely. Suddenly, his body underwent a huge change. His muscles expanded, and his skin and bones became extremely tough. Sharp barbs appeared on his body, shining with lightning. It was the lightning mantis armor. My senses have become deeper. As expected, it has something to do with the lightning mantis. It seems that there's a voice calling me. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled as he looked straight ahead. There seemed to be a special existence in the place where the giant beasts gathered, attracting and calling him. However, there were hundreds of thousands of giant beasts blocking him. He couldn't enter at all, unless he slaughtered them all. I can't do that. Lin Feng frowned. This place was extraordinary. Based on his observation, this should be the place where the giant beasts were protected. If he started a massacre here, the consequences would be unimaginable. But if I don't defeat these giant beasts and kill my way out, how can I enter? Lin Feng muttered to himself, but he hesitated. He couldn't advance or retreat. He was in a dilemma. Let's give it a try. Lin Feng frowned. He carefully stepped into the place, surrounded by golden light. His body had a strange feeling, as if he had entered another dimension. It was very restrictive. The roar of a beast sounded in his mind. It seemed to come from the deepest part of his heart, causing the lightning mantis armor on his body to vibrate slightly. It was a feeling of being connected by blood. It's not another dimension. There is a powerful force here. The force of protection. Lin Feng's eyes deepened. He knew. The force was so strong that it gave him this illusion. It was no wonder that the sorcerer tribe giants didn't chase after him. It was obvious that they already knew how strange and powerful this place was. The lightning mantis armor should still have the consciousness of the lightning mantis. It's very likely that it has some connection with the force here. That day, Lin Feng pondered. He recalled that day when a lightning mantis was being chased by tens of thousands of giant beasts. That spectacular scene was indeed rare to see. Based on what he had seen during this period of time, the giant beasts here did fight. The strong killed the weak, but he had never seen lightning mantis being chased by so many giant beasts. It felt as if it had obtained a treasure that all the beasts coveted. Or it's training like me. Lin Feng nodded, his heart trembling. He glanced at the giant beasts. At this moment, there were many roars, as if they were still afraid of him, an uninvited guest. However, that was all. Strange. The hostility of these giant beasts towards me has weakened. Lin Feng was puzzled. He didn't understand. Every time he saw a giant beast, if it was a little peaceful, it would roar at him as a warning. If it was a little fierce, it would definitely attack first. The giant beasts were extremely xenophobic, but now he was so close to them, but they were indifferent. He felt that although they didn't see him as one of their kind, they were no longer so xenophobic and distant. Is it because of the strange terrain here? Or, Lin Feng thought to himself, but he didn't think too much about it. He carefully moved forward, closer to the giant beasts, wanted to get closer to the mysterious place. Follow the vine to find a melon. Since the giant beast didn't resist him, he might as well give it a try. However, roar, 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 roar. In front of him, the giant beast's hair stood on end. They straightened up, revealing a fierce look. Their expressions flashed with anger, as if they were very resistant to his approach. Lin Feng couldn't help but frown. It still didn't work. Although their hostility had decreased a lot, the giant beasts still resisted him. If I get closer, they will definitely attack, Lin Feng thought to himself. After interacting with the giant beasts during this period, Lin Feng was very clear about their habits. It seems that they don't have a good relationship with me because of the terrain. Then what's the reason? A question mark appeared in his heart. But in an instant, a sudden change occurred. Whoosh! The bright golden light was dazzling. A monstrous force covered the entire area, causing all the giant beasts to let out a soft roar in unison. It was a kind of respect and worship. In an instant, a strong golden light shone, bringing with it an unstoppable force of heaven's might, and a roar resounded. What a strong force! Such a strong metal elemental origin energy. It's somewhat similar to Lei Meng's power, but much stronger and more abundant. Lin Feng's eyes were bright. He looked straight at the mysterious place and thought to himself. This change was far beyond his expectations. He didn't know what had happened. Rumble. Lightning flashed. In the void, where the strong golden light converged, an illusory figure appeared. It seemed to be formed by air currents. It gradually became clear, forming the appearance of a domineering giant beast. That is, Lin Feng's eyes were burning. He saw a giant beast that looked like a red leopard. Its iron hooves glowed with black light, and its body was covered with golden scales. Its body was extremely strong, and its muscles were packed with explosive power. A thick white mane covered the back of its neck and feet, making it look strong and mighty. The most eye-catching thing was the two spiral horns on its head. They were condensed with furious lightning and were extremely intimidating. It looked somewhat similar to Lei Meng, and it contained a strong metal elemental origin energy. What was even more frightening was that it had 6 tails. Clang! The 6-tailed beast looked up to the sky, filled with a domineering aura. The 6-tailed beast's eyes shone brightly as it looked in Lin Feng's direction. Slap! Their eyes met, and Lin Feng felt as if he had been hit hard. His legs felt as if they weighed 1,000 tons, and his body couldn't be controlled. Lin Feng's forehead was dripping with cold sweat. At this time, all the giant beasts around him were prostrating on the ground, humming piously to show their respect. The 6-tailed beast looked down on everything from high above, like a proud son of heaven. However, Lin Feng gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. Although his body was trembling, he refused to kneel. Pressure. It was an extremely strong pressure. I will never yield. Lin Feng's eyes were filled with tenacity and unyielding determination. Although his heart was heavy, he still resisted tenaciously. How could he kneel? The 6-tailed beast's eyes flashed with golden light. It glanced at Lin Feng with interest, then suddenly looked up to the sky and roared. Its voice was loud and clear. A beam of golden light fell from the sky, forming a golden bridge above the giant beast's head. In an instant, the six-tailed beast's phantom disappeared. As the pressure dissipated, Lin Feng felt the pressure on his body lighten, as if everything had returned to normal. However, the giant beasts in front of him were still prostrating on the ground, not daring to get up. Only the golden bridge was in front of him, shining with a clear luster. Chapter 647. There was no way out. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. His intuition told him that this was an opportunity. Perhaps it was full of danger, but it was definitely the key to completing the fourth checkpoint. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Let's go all out. The corners of Lin Feng's mouth rose slightly, his expression calm. Right now, he really didn't have much of a choice. Thud! With a light leap, Lin Feng stepped onto the golden bridge. In an instant, dense metal elemental energy enveloped his body, and the environment around him changed rapidly. The crouching beast disappeared without a trace, and the surrounding aura was sealed and annihilated. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled as he stepped forward. Since he had begun, there was no need to turn back. This is the place. That's an unusually powerful energy. It's a familiar feeling. Lin Feng's eyes deepened as he looked straight ahead. The golden bridge landed at another point, at the center of hundreds of thousands of beasts. There, golden light converged, forming a light barrier. Thunder rumbled in all directions. The powerful energy blocked everything, including the beasts, and kept them at bay. A strange feeling filled his heart, and Lin Feng felt the lightning slaughter armor on his body vibrate violently. I'd like to see, what kind of secret is it hiding? Lin Feng pondered in his heart before he stepped in. Whoosh! Lightning flashed around him, shining brightly. Golden light filled his eyes, and his body seemed to be bound. Lin Feng felt his heart palpitate. In an instant, bang! His mind shook, and a familiar feeling filled his heart once more. A cold voice resounded in his mind. You've entered the lightning star realm. Testing, the voice was still echoing. Suddenly, Lin Feng opened his eyes wide, and he saw the six-tailed beast clearly. An astonishing power seemed to be right in front of him. The six-tailed beast stood in front of him, calm and unruffled. Its eyes, which seemed to contain infinite wisdom, stared at him with a hint of playfulness. BZZT, BZZT. Golden starlight covered its body. Lin Feng only felt that he was enveloped by an abnormally huge power. That was a power that far exceeded what he could bear. It was 1,000 times, 10,000 times, or even 100 million times, 100 billion times. It was hard to estimate. With just a thought from this power, he would be reduced to ashes. That's it. This power, it must be it. Lin Feng stared at the six-tailed beast without flinching, his eyes deep. Everything was very likely to have originated from this strange beast. However, suddenly, the six-tailed beast's eyes flashed with a bright light. Before Lin Feng could react, the six-tailed beast's horn flashed with lightning. In an instant, an enormous amount of lightning energy blasted towards his chest. His body was unable to move. Lin Feng's eyes widened. The lightning instantly sank into his body and began to transform. Zla! Zla! The sound was ear-piercing and sonorous. The golden fate astrolabe shone brightly, as if a mysterious power had been awakened. The familiar beast aura suddenly flashed, and Lin Feng's heart palpitated incomparably. It's the Lightning Ming. This is the real aura of the Lightning Ming. It's exactly the same. Lin Feng's expression changed instantly. His eyes flashed with a clear luster. The lightning slaughter armor around his body seemed to have come alive. Golden lightning covered it like a layer of light armor. The spikes on his back flickered with a dense golden light. Every spike grew longer and stronger. The most shocking thing was the horn on his head. It actually split into two halves. Intense lightning gathered around it like a bolt of lightning. This lightning energy, this horn, Lin Feng was shocked. His intuition told him that as long as he willed it, this horn would immediately release lightning, just like the lightning Meng that day. The lightning Meng armor had been activated. At this moment, whoosh, light and shadow flashed. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He saw that the six-tailed beast's face seemed to have changed slightly, but it instantly turned into an illusory bubble. Just like the illusion just now, it disappeared in front of his eyes again. Lin Feng was stunned. The pressure and power disappeared without a trace at the same time. Was it laughing just now? Lin Feng thought. At this moment, the golden starlight wrapped around his body also disappeared with a pop. Pop. That familiar cold voice sounded again. Trial Taker has not completed the 4th checkpoint, unable to trigger the 5th checkpoint. As the voice sounded, Lin Feng instantly felt a shockingly huge power. His body suddenly changed, his vision blurred, and his body seemed to be floating in the air. Pop! The golden light disappeared. Lin Feng returned to the canyon. Lin Feng's expression changed instantly. His heart suddenly beat faster. At this moment, he was in the middle of hundreds of thousands of giant beasts outside the mysterious lightning star realm. The situation, extremely worrisome. Not good. Run. The first thought appeared in his mind. However, just as Lin Feng was about to run away, his brows furrowed and his body stopped in place. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled as he glanced around. These giant beasts were just looking at him, but they were minding their own business. They didn't even pay attention to him, as if they were strangers. How strange. I understand now. It's that lightning just now. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He instantly remembered. That extremely powerful six-tailed beast had completely transformed his Thunder Slaughter armor, and even his Golden Fate Astrolabe had undergone a metamorphosis. At this moment, his aura was no different from the real Lightning Slaughter. In other words, this was the real beast aura. So, the most crucial step to becoming a Beast King lies in the Lightning Slaughter armor. I've been going in the wrong direction all this time. If I'm not wrong, the Lightning Slaughter armor itself contains the original aura of the Lightning Slaughter. It's just that sighing in his heart, Lin Feng secretly blamed himself for being careless. Fortunately, by chance, he had obtained the real Lightning Slaughter armor at this time. His luck was not bad. But what exactly is this six-tailed beast? It actually has such great power. What secret is hidden in the 5th test of the Lightning Star Realm? It seems to be very impressive. His heart trembling, Lin Feng turned around to look at the Lightning Star Realm surrounded by golden lightning, his eyes shining brightly. Just by looking at the hundreds of thousands of giant beasts around him, he knew that it was extraordinary. It was very likely that there was a great opportunity hidden here. Forget it. There's no need to think so much. As long as I successfully pass the 4th test and become a Beast King, when I enter the Lightning Star Realm again, the truth will come out. Nodding, Lin Feng understood. Although I don't know how to become a Beast King. But obviously, now is not the time. I'll think about it after this riot. Lin Feng smiled faintly and left the place protected by the golden light. The other giant beasts were afraid of the powerful Witch Tribe giants, but he wasn't. There was no need for him to hide. Moreover, these Witch Tribe giants were very helpful to him, especially the giant drop of blood of the Gomang warlock. The ground was still shaking. From time to time, one could see giant beasts rushing into the place where the golden light gathered at an extremely fast speed. The canyon was huge, and many giant beasts were far away. Naturally, it took a long time for them to rush here. However, the further the journey, the more dangerous it was. Right now, there are fewer of them. Most of them encountered the Witch Tribe giants on the way and became prey. Lin Feng shook his head. He knew very well. The ground was still shaking. He could vaguely feel the majestic bodies of the Witch Tribe giants stomping on the ground and waving the spiked clubs in their hands. One by one, the beasts died tragically. Blood flowed all over the ground. They were eaten alive by the Witch Tribe giants as food. The hunter and the prey are determined by strength. Right now, you are the prey and I'm the hunter. Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he sped forward. Like an arrow piercing through the wind, his speed exploded. He had to hurry up. 2 hours later. There are more witch tribe giants here. I encountered a group of 10 shimming warlocks just now. I almost died in their hands. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled as he sped forward. His body was covered in blood. His right hand was hanging by his side, and his face was pale. He looked extremely pathetic. The individual strength of the witch tribe giants was much stronger than the giant beasts. The witch tribe giants who were good at attacking were even more difficult to deal with. The encirclement of the 10 Xianming warlocks was enough to make him suffer a great loss. If he had not fought his way out with serious injuries, he would have been in trouble. The prey this time was much more powerful than he had imagined. No wonder the giant beasts were so afraid. The witch tribe giants are indeed powerful. I underestimated them previously. Lin Feng nodded. He had already stopped underestimating them. Among the 12 tribes of the witch tribe, the Gomang witch tribe was the weakest in terms of attack power. However, that was not the case for the other tribes. For example, the Xianming warlocks just now attacked at an extremely fast speed. Their encirclement power came wave after wave, and he could not defend himself at all. Indeed, they could not be compared. Moreover, even if they are from the same tribe, their strengths are different. Although they're all Gomang warlocks, the 4 Gomang warlocks that I killed just now were much more powerful than the 3 Gomang warlocks that I killed the first time. I almost died. Lin Feng sighed softly, and his eyes lit up. The witch tribe giants were much more powerful than he had imagined. Even though he had improved tremendously, it was still difficult for him to deal with a large number of them. After all, his strength as a celestial spirit master was far inferior to the god of war in a one-on-one battle. Once the individual strength of the witch tribe giants was not afraid of a celestial spirit master, and there were enough of them, he would be in a tough battle. Just like earlier, he could only flee. Fortunately, the witch tribe giants are very confident in their own strength. They usually come in groups of 3 to 5. It's rare for them to come in groups of more than 10. If they are like the giant beasts, I won't be able to take advantage of them. Lin Feng chuckled, recovering from his injuries as he sped along. In less than 10 seconds, he had recovered more than half of his injuries. As long as he did not die, even if his injuries were 10 times worse than now, he would be a hero again in no time. Fight again. Chapter 648. 3 days later, Lin Feng sat on the rock wall and looked far away. There was a faint smile at the corner of his mouth, and he looked calm. There were blood stains all over his body, and there were many wounds on his body. However, they were healing at a speed that was visible to the naked eye. There was also a deep wound on his cheek. However, Lin Feng did not care as he had suffered too many injuries in the past 3 days. Gomang warlocks are good at defense and have strong vitality. Xianming warlocks are good at attacking, and their attack speed is fast. Zhurong warlocks are good at using fire and are almost immune to any fire attacks. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled as a helpless smile appeared on his face. Although he had gained a lot in the past 3 days, he had also suffered a lot of injuries. There were only 3 warlock clans that attacked the giant beasts in the canyon. They were Gomang warlocks, Xianming warlocks, and Zhurong warlocks. However, the only one that he could deal with was the Gomang warlock. Zhurong warlocks are immune to fire, but I'm not, Lin Feng sighed. He was in a passive position when facing Zhurong warlocks, as he could only rely on his god of war power to fight them. However, Zhurong warlocks were good at close-range combat and long-range combat, especially when there were 3 or 4 Zhurong warlocks working together. It was difficult for him to gain any advantage, and he had to return empty-handed every time. As for Xianming warlocks, Lin Feng shook his head helplessly. Most of the injuries on his body were caused by these Xianming warlocks. Their attacks are fast, and they are good at besieging. Most importantly, there are about 10 of them. It's a headache. Lin Feng sighed in his heart. Although his strength had increased a lot after 3 days of actual combat training, He had failed to challenge the dark underworld warlock a few times. At this moment, the injuries on his body were caused by this. The only thing that he gained was Gomang warlocks. I killed 33 Gomang warlocks in 3 days. The giant green blood droplets in the heart of Lich are more abundant. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. This was his biggest gain this time. Although he didn't know what these huge green blood droplets were used for, just the energy they contained was not to be underestimated. If he didn't have the heart of the Lich, it was possible that his body would explode after devouring the green blood. Unfortunately, it's coming to an end. The warlocks are almost done with their prey. Most of them have returned. I'm afraid this is the end. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly as he looked into the distance. The trembling of the earth had almost stopped, and the canyon had regained its tranquility. As the warlocks returned victorious, the giant beasts seemed to have survived another crisis. It's hard to find the Gomang warlock again. It's time to go back. Lin Feng nodded. In fact, on the third day, his harvest was very little. Most of the 33 Gomang warlocks were killed in the first 2 days. On the third day, as it was almost the end, he had only found a group of Gomang warlocks after 20 hours. The efficiency was very low. I wonder what secrets the heart of the Lich is hiding. It seems like I have to wait for all the scales in my body to be dyed green before I can transform. It's going to take a long time. Lin Feng pondered as he sped forward. His eyes shone with a strange light as he walked towards the place where the giant beasts gathered. No matter what, now, I have to complete the mission of the 4th checkpoint. I'll deal with the rest in the future. Soon, Lin Feng returned. The familiar golden light flashed in front of him. The giant beasts were piled up like mountains. There were many of them. More than 90% of the giant beasts in the canyon had gathered here. There are hundreds of thousands of them. It's not easy to become the king of beasts. At least my aura is no different from Lei Meng now. Maybe it'll be easier to intimidate them. However, I have to wait for the crisis to be resolved and for the giant warlocks to leave before I can implement it. There are still 76 days left. It should be enough. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly as he slowly stepped into the golden light ring. However, this time, it was completely unexpected. Bang! A familiar voice rang in his mind. Lin Feng opened his eyes wide. The familiar pressure came again, and his heart trembled. Trial taker, you have killed more than 10 ancient warlocks. You have received giant beast worship. Reverence level, 6%. His voice was still cold, but Lin Feng's heart trembled. Ancient warlocks? Giant beast worship? Reverence level, 6%. This is... Lin Feng's expression kept changing. The golden light before Lin Feng's eyes had already disappeared. Lin Feng looked to the front and sensed many heated gazes staring at him. Not only was there no hostility, but there was also a sense of reverence. These giant beasts were full of confidence in him. Punk! Lin Feng's mind buzzed, and he instantly understood. I understand now. I see. It was as if a door was opened in his heart. Lin Feng suddenly understood. The secret of the 4th checkpoint that he had been looking for was finally revealed. The key was the giants of the sorcerer tribe. No, it's the ancient warlocks. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. Killing more than 10 ancient warlocks will trigger the trial process. Reverence level, 6%. If I'm not mistaken, it's the 36 Gomang warlocks that I killed. According to this ratio, if I kill 1,000 Gomang warlocks, will my reverence level reach 100%? Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat as a bright light flashed in his eyes. The path in front of him was suddenly clear. Reverence was equivalent to submission. In other words, as long as I kill 1,000 ancient warlocks and reach 100% reverence level, I'll be able to obtain the submission of all the giant beasts and complete the 4th checkpoint. Clenching his fists, Lin Feng's heart was trembling. He finally found the direction. Time is of the essence. Let's hurry. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled, and he dashed out. Under the reverence of the giant beasts, Lin Feng did not linger and dashed to the canyon as fast as he could. Time was too precious. There were still 76 days left. In the canyon, Lin Feng's eyes sparkled, and he sped up. The ancient warlocks had finished their hunt and were all returning triumphantly. Not to mention killing 1,000 of them. Even finding 100 of them was not an easy task. It's troublesome. No, it's quite troublesome. Regardless of whether I can kill them or not, it's not easy to find them. I can only walk and see what I can do. Lin Feng frowned and looked serious. It was not easy to trigger the 4th checkpoint. How could he give up so easily? Lin Feng's eyes flickered as he felt the ground shaking slightly, and he dashed towards the direction of the earthquake. 2 hours later. I'm in luck. There are 3 more Gomang warlocks. If I'm not mistaken, killing them can increase my reverence level by 0.3%. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled as he followed behind the 3 Gomang warlocks. Murderous intent was contained in the Gomang warlocks. It was too easy for him to kill the 3 warlocks. However, it's not worth killing the goose that lays the golden eggs. Instead of increasing my reverence level by 0.3%, why don't I let them go? Lin Feng's lips curled up into a faint smile as he followed behind him with light steps. What he had to do was to enter the tiger's den. They must have a place to settle down. The wizard tribe has a tribe, so these ancient warlocks must have a tribe too. There must be more ancient warlocks over there. Lin Feng thought to himself, and a murderous look flashed across his eyes. He had to kill 1,000 ancient warlocks. It was easier said than done. He had to give it his all. Otherwise, there were only 76 days left. It was too short. Lin Fengsha followed closely. He was very cautious, not daring to be careless. The ground had stopped shaking, and it was obvious that almost all the ancient warlocks had left the canyon. The 3 Gomang warlocks that he was following might be the last batch. If they were discovered, he would have to fight, and things would become even more troublesome. Swoosh! Swoosh! Lin Feng had a deep look in his eyes. He was far behind and relied on his life spirit to maintain the connection. However, it was also luck. If he used his life spirit to determine the distance and position between them, he would have been discovered by the Gomang warlocks. Soon, after passing through the dense canyons, they passed through the huge gap. Lin Feng's eyes were shining as he followed the Gomang warlocks to the huge mountain range. I didn't expect there to be such a terrain outside the canyon. Lin Feng exclaimed and found it unbelievable. He did not know that he was attracted by the huge gap in the middle of the canyon because he was unconscious that day. Otherwise, how could he not know about the existence of the ancient warlocks in the huge mountain range? He was extremely lucky to have completed the first stage that day. However, he had to lose a point for every point he gained, which made the later stages much more difficult. Slap! Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he followed the 3 Gomang warlocks. It was as if he had stepped into a different realm, and his body felt extremely heavy. It was an oppressive force. It was a powerful existence that seemed to be watching him. I'm afraid it's not inferior to the 6-tailed exotic beast. However, there must be many restrictions for such a terrifying power. Lin Feng pondered. Although he was cautious, he did not mind. Just like what he saw, the 6-tailed exotic beast's power was limited to the area covered by the golden halo. It seemed like the terrifying existence here was the same as well. As long as he did not disturb it, there should not be any danger. Otherwise, he would not be able to complete the 4th stage. Swoosh! Swoosh! The Gomang warlocks seemed to be in a good mood as they were talking in front of him. Following the 3 Gomang warlocks closely, Lin Feng soon stepped into a huge mountain. There was a strong aura of wood, and the trees were flourishing. The air was filled with a strong aura of life. Such an environment was most suitable for the Gomang wizard tribe to live in. Oh! Lin Feng's eyes lit up. His chest was rising and falling faster, and his heart was beating faster. The closer he got, the more he felt danger. Many Gomang warlocks. Pursing his lips, Lin Feng hid the intense, murderous intent in his eyes. Although this place was filled with danger, it was also filled with great opportunities. I'm about to break through and kill. I originally planned to finish the 2nd chapter, Yinling Mansion, with 2 million words, but it seems like I've exceeded it by a little. However, this purple star realm is really important. F***CK. No matter what, I have to speed up. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.